Hi guys, can you hear me? Can you see me? If yes, type yes in the chat box. Hi, evening everyone. Great, nice. So yeah, let's continue. Let's begin. Let's start. And we, I guess, had a gap of 1 week as well. I guess because last week we had Ganesh Chaturthi. So we are meeting after 2 weeks. Let's revise a bit and then let's come to pace and we'll continue. Let me start sharing the screen. Uh, can you guys see the shared screen? Cool. Okay, so let's begin. Quick revision starting से first topic inflation क्या क्या discuss किया. We had discussed about the definition of inflation. Just a second. Yes, we had discussed about the definition of inflation, then the types and reasons of inflation, impacts, associated terms. ये सारी चीजें हम लोगों ने discuss किया. I tell you every time. I hope you remember this. Why the intention behind this is primarily to make you remember the things which we had learned in the first lecture also. Why? Because topics like inflation, topics like monetary policy, other topics of economics also, they'll be very much relevant till the last lecture of economics. So I want you guys to remember these concepts which we had dealt in the initial part of the lecture series. I want you to remember that as well. ठीक है, वो भी याद रहना चाहिए. उसके बाद, yes, how to control inflation. So there was fiscal policy, there was monetary policy. In fact, on monetary policy, the entire next topic was about monetary policy and the concept of liquidity. यही next topic था, ठीक है. And उसमें क्या था contents were basically what is monetary policy, framework of monetary policy in India, the tools of monetary policy, the impacts of monetary policy. Yeah, the impacts of monetary policy. तो ये सारी चीजें हम लोगों ने discuss की थी. In fact, in one of the lectures also, hence after this, after learning the foundation about this, in one of the subsequent lectures, we had also seen the very recent monetary policy and its impact on the Indian economy. So I had taken you to the Chrome page and we had discussed कि अभी monetary policy का क्या हालत है, क्या situation है, what did Saktikant Das say. So वो सारी चीजें हम लोगों ने we had seen that. Okay. Moving on, the next is about national income. Just a second, people there in the waiting room. Yes. So the next topic is about national income. And in the topic of national income, what had we discussed? We had started our understanding with the meaning of the term national income. उसमें क्या आएगा? उसका meaning, and then the concepts of GDP, NDP, GNP, NNP, all this we had discussed. Just one second. Swami, we shall surely discuss about this. Okay, what you can do is maybe remind me in the last Q&A wala part, Swami. Do remind me in the last Q&A wala part, and at that point of time we'll discuss your doubt. Cool. And one more thing, guys, if in case you are, if you have any kind of doubts, put doubt in the public chat. Don't send it to me privately, because many times it happens. Because of many chats, I happen to skip those. Okay, so put chats. I mean, whatever doubts you have, you can put in the regular chat box rather than the private one. Cool. So, and the next concept was about GDP deflator. So that's something which we had discussed and we have already dealt with. Okay, and okay, moving on. The next was about the topic of poverty. ये भी देखा था हम लोग ने. अभी हाँ, मैंने आपको बोला था this is that part in which we are switching away from the more interesting part. Until now, I used to consider that जो part जिसमें by hearting नहीं है, जिसमें समझना है, that is the part of economics which I like, and I used to assume even you like the part of economics which is more analytical rather than by hearting. But there are few parts of economics जहाँ पे by hearting होगा, which is more or less human side of economics, जिसमें poverty आता है, जिसमें unemployment आता है. ठीक है. So ऐसे टाइप के टॉपिक्स आएंगे बीच में थोड़े, the kind of topics which requires a lot of efforts from your sides rather than from my side. So ये टॉपिक है पॉवर्टी वाला या फिर एम्प्लॉयमेंट वाला टॉपिक है, वो सारे टॉपिक ऐसे होंगे जिसमें आपको बाय आउट करने टर्म्स एंड डेफिनेशंस. ठीक है. सो दिस इज वन ऑफ दोस टॉपिक्स. एंड इन पॉवर्टी we had discussed what is poverty, types of poverty, we absolute and generational, situational, absolute and relative. So yes, sorry, all these things we had discussed. Apart from this, we had also poverty cycle we had understood, associated terms, and strategies by the government, consequences strategies government adopt here poverty eradicate करने के लिए. Okay, then there was Q&A. So all these things we have discussed already. On the next topic we discuss employment. मेरे ख्याल से last time ही खत्म हुआ कुछ तो ये ऐसा था. Employment last time we had finished employment, and the contents of topics of employment was basically what is employment, what is unemployment, what is labor force. All these are not something which is SAE. We although we tend to use the terms like labor force and workforce and all these things in generic sense, but actually it is not to be used in generic sense. The words cannot be used interchangeably. सबका मतलब अलग अलग है. ठीक है, labor force means different and unemployed means different. Or there's a different meaning to workforce. The term workforce, there's a different meaning to work demographic dividend, on which we had a lot of discussion. I hope you remember that. Okay. And yes, then we had discussed causes of unemployment. So there were different unemployments, and I guess last time I had asked a question about I guess situational unemployment के बारे में आपको question पूछा गया था, and you had answered correctly. So I was pretty much convinced कि आपको causes of unemployment जो वाला part था वो आपको आता भी है. ठीक है. Moving on, the next is types of unemployment. We have discussed that. I mean, causes of unemployment or types of unemployment, situational, and there were many like vulnerable employment, disguised unemployment. So ये सारी चीजें हमने discuss की थी. Associated terms we have seen. This is that part in which we had discussed demographic dividend. Okay, and we had a lot of discussion just so that you have that idea about what is cohort, about what is demographic dividend, why is India having this? Is this something which is a destiny? By the way, I think I have told you this quote last time. I just want you guys to tell me again. Tell me this thing. Demographic dividend is what? Demographic dividend is what? I think, if I recall it right, I think I have told you this quote last time. I want you to remember. I mean, in the last lecture, we had discussed this. I want you to remember and tell me an answer right now. The answer is, the question is, demographic dividend is what? The options are window of opportunity, destiny. Demographic dividend क्या है? Is it a window of opportunity or destiny? क्या लगता है? What is demographic dividend? Is it a window of opportunity or is it destiny? Come on, guys. We have spent a lot of time in this. I don't want you guys to hesitate and then answer. How many of you guys remember demographic dividend? देखा है आपने? याद है आपको? हम लोगों ने किया था discuss. Guys, come on. I want an answer. Okay, I guess then, okay, you remember demographic dividend. It's just that this particular quote we had not discussed at that time. Okay, let me tell you this. I think this must be the case. I think this must be the case. That's the reason why you aren't able to answer. Okay, cool. So, demographic dividend हम लोगों ने जब भी देखा था, तभी हम लोगों ने ऐसा कुछ तो देखा था that it was primarily sort of a structure in which we had drawn cohorts. Just a second, let me mute everyone. Okay. Yes. So I hope you remember cohorts. और हम लोगों ने देखा था cohorts कैसे अलग-अलग होते हैं. ठीक है. There can be a cohort which may be like this. There can be a cohort which may be straight, sort of straight. Let me just show you one of the showing one of the diagrams. I'll ask you which type of cohort is it. Okay. Tell me. This is one type of cohort and this is another type of cohort. ये A है. This is A. This is B. Tell me कौन सा कोहोर्ट डेवलपिंग कंट्री का, डेवलपिंग या अंडर डेवलप कंट्री का? कौन सा कोहोर्ट डेवलपिंग या अंडर डेवलप कंट्री का? अंडर डेवलप कंट्री का कोहोर्ट कैसा रहेगा? Cool, Ravi. What you have said is correct. That statement which you have given is correct. Okay, fine. Yours. All of you guys are saying A. Yes, A is the answer to the question. A is the answer to the question. Underdeveloped country का cohort A है. मतलब it's high birth rate but high death rate also. I just want to confirm this, that you remember this concept. Okay, कौन से developed country का cohort is B. B is the developed country का मतलब low birth rate but many of them surviving. और usually ऐसा नहीं होता. It's more or less like this. It's like this. That after a certain age, maybe after the age of 70, people start dying because of lifestyle disease and all. ठीक है. So I hope the foundation is clear. हम लोग का cohort क्या है? We are basically going from A to B and अभी right now our cohort is something like this. ठीक है. This is the way our cohort is, जिसमें middle part मतलब working age population बहुत ज्यादा. ठीक है. Working age population ज्यादा है, इसका मतलब right now we are having benefits of demographic dividend. तो ये सारे terms वगैरह we had discussed last time. I want you to remember this. ठीक है। और मैंने ये क्यों बोला, ये मैंने क्वेश्चन क्यों पूछा, द रीजन बिहाइंड दिस इज यूपीएससी ने एक बार ऐसा क्वेश्चन पूछ चुका है एग्जाम में, यूपीएससी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा है दैट डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड इज अ विंडो ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी नॉट अ डेस्टिनी। जो आज वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन, ये जो बीच वाला पार्ट है, ये जो वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन है, जो आज हम लोग को इतना ज्यादा दिख रहा है, ठीक है, ये वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन हमेशा तक ऐसा ही नहीं रहेगा। ये जो आज वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन चंक है वो कल बूढ़े होंगे, ठीक है, एंड दे विल गो टू द हायर population pyramid, मतलब I mean pyramid नहीं, but the population cohort, they'll go to higher population cohort, ठीक है, मतलब this will shift upwards, and when that will happen, these won't be the working age people, they'll be rather dependents. So अभी अगर if you have to take the benefit of demographic dividend, it is now, it is a window of opportunity, it is not something which will remain forever, it is not something which will remain forever. Are we clear? Do you recall this? Have you understood the discussion until now जो भी हम लोगों ने discuss किया about demographic dividend and everything? If yes, type yes in the chat box. Cool. I just want a confirmation because okay, great. Okay, so let's move on. Let's go to the next topic. The next is, yeah, we had discussed Q&A. So ये employment वाला topic खत्म हो गया था last time, और हम लोग ने the topic, इसके बाद का topic which is balance of payments, DOP, ये last time चालू कर दिया था, ठीक है. This was the topic which was started last time, ठीक है. इसमें क्या क्या पढ़ा हम लोग ने टेल मी कितना हम लोग का हो गया, ठीक है. डेफिनेशंस हो गया क्या? डेफिनेशन कितना हुआ था बाय द वे अपना? किसी को कुछ याद है? व्हाट इज द लास्ट टॉपिक व्हिच वी हैव डेल्ट विद द लास्ट लेक्चर? टाइप्स चल रहे थे, टाइप्स, ठीक है. टाइप्स बेसिकली कंपोनेंट्स यू आर सेइंग, ओके फाइन, ठीक है. तो अपना फिर करंट अकाउंट, टाइप्स में करंट अकाउंट आता है, बट एनीवेज करंट अकाउंट डिटेल टॉपिक भी है. ओके, सो इफ दैट इज द केस, we'll anyways revise it because it's a gap of 2 weeks already, and नीड फॉर मेंटेनिंग बीओपी ये चल रहा था. अच्छा वो हो गया था, ओके फाइन. टाइप्स में इनविजिबल नॉन फैक्टर सर्विसेज, कूल, ठीक है. इनविजिबल विजिबल वो वाला पार्ट चल रहा था. एसोसिएटेड टर्म्स, वी हैड रीच एसोसिएटेड टर्म्स, ओके. आई डोंट रिकॉल अस रीचिंग देयर, बट देन इफ इन केस, कूल. कैपिटल अकाउंट तक हुआ था. वन इज सेइंग करंट अकाउंट, अदर सेइंग कैपिटल अकाउंट, बट एनीवेज ठीक है. हम लोग एक काम करते हैं, वैसे भी थोड़ा रिवाइज करने वाला. At one point of time, you will realize कि ये topic नहीं हुआ है. You just let me know at that point of time. Fine. You just tell me. You ping me here in the chat box. I'll read it and tell you. Cool. So let's move on. So we had started with the definition, need for maintaining BOP. I guess किसी ने तो बोला ये हो गया. Next components ये भी हुआ है, types of BOP ये भी last time discuss किया था. Current account, capital account, ये दो part थे. Associated term इसके बाद का था, ठीक है. Okay. And the next is Q&A. तो ये वाला part, this much is foreign investments. We need to start with that, which is a part of current account. Sorry, capital account. Okay, वो बाकी है, ठीक है, वो करना है. What is BOP? Guys, you don't remember what is BOP? BOP, balance of payments. ये एक काम करते हैं, अभी चालू करते हैं. If you even don't remember, you try to like grasp it right now. Not that we'll be skipping all this and we'll be moving it. We'll once again discuss this and then we'll move it. ठीक है, yeah. So we were discussing definitions and we are trying to understand what is BOP. BOP last time हमने पढ़ा था. It's basically, just one second. So yes, so the balance of payment मतलब क्या है? Also known as balance of international payments, or abbreviated as BOP or BOP of a country. मतलब balance of payment BOP of a country क्या है? ठीक है, this is the answer to your question, Kunal. BOP क्या है? Of a country is the difference between money flowing into the country in a period of time. Difference between the money flowing into the country in a particular period of time, like a quarter or a year, and the outflow of money to the rest of the world. So basically एक country में से कितना पैसा बाहर जा रहा है और कितना पैसा country के अंदर आ रहा है, ठीक है, in a given period of time, that is nothing but BOP. That is nothing but balance of payments. ठीक है, in very simple terms, that's nothing but balance of payments. Just one second, someone there in the waiting room. Okay, so that is nothing but balance of payments. And balance of payment is a statement of all transactions made between entities in one country and the rest of the world over a defined period of time, such as a quarter or a year. So it's the same definitions, one and the same definition. So we know this thing that एक country दूसरे country से कितना पैसा ले रहा है और कितना पैसा दूसरे country में भेज रहा है, उसका खाता, उसका अकाउंट इज नथिंग बट बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट. ठीक है. सो बेसिकली हियर इन दिस पार्ट अभी तक जो भी हम लोगों ने किया था वो सब इंटरनल था. इट वाज अबाउट इंडियाज इंटरनल इकोनॉमी. सो पॉवर्टी किया, इंडिया का इंटरनल इकोनॉमी का सिचुएशन था. एम्प्लॉयमेंट वी डिस्कस, इट वाज इंडियाज इंटरनल इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन. ऐसे ही वी डिस्कस अबाउट द इन्फ्लेशन. वी डिस्कस अबाउट इन्फ्लेशन मतलब इंडियन इकोनॉमी का इन्फ्लेशन. मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, इंडियन इकोनॉमी और इंडियन आरबीआई जो मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी निकालते हैं वो. नाउ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट समथिंग इंटरनेशनल, इंडियाज पर्सपेक्टिव विद द इंटरनेशनल वर्ल्ड. ठीक है. सो दिस इज द पार्ट ऑफ व्हाट दिस इज द पार्ट ऑफ this is the part of balance of payments, and here we'll see how a country interacts with the rest of the world. Okay, how the supply of money from one country to another happens, or in what channels, by what ways, how does it happen. So that's something which we will be discussing today. Cool. So yeah, moving on. This is balance of payments, and what is the need for maintaining balance of payment? Iske piche reason kya hai need for maintaining the balance of payments? These are the needs for maintaining balance of payment. Kya hai? In the modern world, there is hardly any country which is self-sufficient in the sense that it produces all the goods and services it needs. मतलब एक टाइम पे ये एक बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट था. Being a country which is entirely self-sufficient is something which is a very big achievement. ये बहुत एक टाइम पे बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट था. For example, Russia used to brag itself a lot. Russia ऐसा बोलता था कि हम लोग एक पिन से एक मिसाइल तक सब कुछ अपने पास ही बनाते. ठीक है. Russia was that kind of, I mean, Soviet Union was that kind of country which was willing to have this kind of mechanism. ऐसे ही इवन इंडिया हैड एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम एस्पायर्ड फॉर दिस. कभी 1905 में जब अपना स्वदेशी मूवमेंट हुआ था, एट दैट टाइम वी आर आल्सो सेइंग दिस थिंग, बॉयकॉट ब्रिटिश गुड्स, ब्रिटिश कपड़ों को जला दो. ठीक है. लोकमान्य तिलक वाज इन्वॉल्वड, रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर था. 1905 इट वाज प्री बंगाल पार्टीशन. ये सब आई थिंक नहीं हुआ, आपका हिस्ट्री चालू नहीं हुआ, राइट? ठीक है. तो शायद से ये आपको नहीं मालूम रहेगा. बट देन जस्ट रिमेंबर देयर वाज अ स्वदेशी मूवमेंट इवन प्रायर टू इंडिपेंडेंस. आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस ऑल्सो गांधी जी वाज स्ट्रांगली ऑफ द ओपिनियन कि नहीं, हम लोग को सेल्फ रिलायंट होना चाहिए, सेल्फ डिपेंडेंस होना चाहिए. ठीक है. सो दैट वाज द आइडिया. बट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दीज डेज देयर इज दिस, आफ्टर you can say 1980s and 1990s, the world moved towards globalization rather than being a country which is more self-reliant. The world became more globalized. Globalized मतलब क्या? Interconnected with each other. ठीक है. So when the world became more globalized, at one point of time, you must realize that even India was a part of it. And now these days, being a very closed economy with having least sort of transaction with the other countries is something which is considered as a punishment. ठीक है. आजकल अगर कोई एक कंट्री को दूसरे कंट्री के साथ ट्रांजेक्शन ना करने दिया जाए, दैट्स कंसिडर्ड एज अ पनिशमेंट. फॉर एग्जांपल, ईरान के ऊपर अभी रिस्ट्रिक्शंस है. कैन एनीवन टेल मी एनी अदर कंट्री जिसके ऊपर बहुत हेवी इंटरनेशनल रिस्ट्रिक्शंस है ट्रेड वगैरह करने के लिए, ट्रेड और इन्वेस्टमेंट करने के लिए? ईरान इज वन ऑफ दोस कंट्री. आई ऑलरेडी गिव यू. वेरी ट्रू, वेरी ट्रू. इट्स नथिंग बट नॉर्थ कोरिया. ठीक है. इट्स नथिंग बट नॉर्थ कोरिया. किम जोंग उन, उसमें भी ऐसा ही है. वो कंट्री को पनिश कर रहा है इंटरनेशनल वर्ल्ड के हम लोग से तुमको कोई हेल्प नहीं मिलेगा, तुम लोग हम लोग के कंट्री में कुछ पैसे वगैरह भेजोगे नहीं. ठीक है. दैट्स समथिंग व्हिच वाज द आइडिया ऑफ punishment. Are you getting it? So the vision, the idea that a country will be self-sufficient from the scratch to the zenith, okay, that's something which is utopian now. That's too ideal to be true. Okay, in the modern world, there is hardly any country which is entirely self-sufficient. एक country को दूसरे country के साथ transact करना ही पड़ता है in the terms of goods and services, and every country imports from other countries the goods that cannot be produced at all in the country, or can be produced only at unduly high cost as compared to the foreign supplies. Okay? And similarly, a country exports to other countries the commodities which those countries prefer to buy from abroad rather than producing at home. Okay? Rather than producing at home. Besides trade of goods and services, there are flow of capital also. मतलब goods and services का trade तो होता ही है, but flow of capital मतलब actual money का भी flow होता है, cash का भी flow होता है एक country से दूसरे country के बीच में. ठीक है. And foreign capital flows are in the form of portfolio investment by foreign institutional investors or in the form of FDI investment. Now, these 2 points we'll do something. We'll discuss these 2 points later in the later part of today's lecture. Okay, but anyways, let's move on. Let's go to the next part. We have understood what BOP is. We have understood what is the need of BOP. क्योंकि आज के time पे कोई country is not secluded. Every country has to some or the other extent experience the impact of globalization, and when they have experienced the impact of globalization, they are dealing with the other country and they need to maintain some book of accounts. They need to maintain some records about the transaction with the rest of the world. That's nothing but BOP. That is nothing but balance of payments. ठीक है. इसके components क्या है? इसके components primarily there are 2 components. कौन सा? एक current account and the other is capital account. एक current account and the other is capital account. Now जिसको याद है, Last time हम लोगों ने जो पढ़ा था current account and capital account. Tell me this thing, current account. I'll rather ask you a question. Transaction, basically trade in goods will come in what? It will come in current account or capital account. Last time we discussed here. It's just something cool. Great. Okay. If I give you one example, if I tell me which account will this lie in? Mukesh Ambani purchasing some very big stakes in some British company. Mukesh Ambani purchasing big stakes in British company. What type of account will it come in? Cool, it will come in capital account. Rest of the things will come in current account. Okay. Now tell me this thing. Okay, it will be a very complicated example, but do you know this thing that when the freight, when the cargo ships go from one place to another in the international seas, for example, एक ship जा रहा है from Middle East to Southeast Asia, Middle East to Southeast Asia, मतलब Middle East मतलब दुबई से Southeast Asia के बीच में जा रहा है और बीच में वो इंडिया के आजू बाजू से भी जाता है, ठीक है, इंडियन ओशन रीजन के आजू बाजू से भी जाता है एक शिप, ठीक है, शिप इज गोइंग फ्रॉम दुबई, दुबई मतलब मिडिल ईस्ट समवेयर, ठीक है, फ्रॉम देयर इट इज गोइंग टू साउथ ईस्ट एशिया, मतलब इंडोनेशिया वगैरह जा रहा है, बीच में वो इंडिया से आजू बाजू में से भी पास होगा, ठीक है, एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम every ship is it is mandatory on every ship to have insurance. और सपोज वो शिप को एक इंडियन कंपनी LIC ने इंश्योरेंस दिया है उसके बारे में, वो ट्रैवल के बारे में, what type of transaction will this be? किस में आएगा वो? BOP के करंट अकाउंट में आएगा या कैपिटल अकाउंट में? एक बाहर का कोई शिप है, मे बी एक ब्रिटिश शिप है, ठीक है, उसको इंडियन कंपनी ने इंश्योरेंस दिया है. Why? Can anyone tell me why? Fine, you're coming into correct answer. Can anyone tell me why? क्यों ऐसा रहेगा? What type of transaction will it be? Goods के लिए है? नहीं. Services है. Very true. Sanmi, it's services. True that. Services क्या है? Is it service import या service export? Is it service import या service export? Correct. It's service export. अच्छा, service export है तो कंट्री में पैसा आएगा से कंट्री से पैसा जाएगा, ठीक है, what will happen? आएगा. Very true. The wealth will come in because we are exporting, right? The wealth will come in. Correct. True that. Yes. So I'm pretty much sure. Last time के थोड़े बहुत examples आपको याद है, ठीक है, and I'm happy that you remember this stuff. Let's anyways continue with this. For those who have joined new this time, or maybe for those who may have missed the last lecture, let's revise and let's continue. Yeah. So balance of payment first was current account. Let's try to understand this. Current account includes the transactions of goods and services, income between the residents and the rest of the world, and the current account balance is largely driven by the movement of goods and services. ठीक है, मतलब याद रखो, movement of goods and services के लिए current account use होता है. Actually something which is transaction between one country to another. कुछ चीजों का import या export होता है तो it will be considered in current account. किसी चीज का import या export होगा तो it will be considered in current account. ठीक है. In one more, if I tell you in one more sentence, if you are able to understand this, well and good. नहीं समझ में आ रहा है तो बाद में समझेंगे हम लोग, चिंता मत करो. But then in one more simplistic term, in one more simplistic statement, I can say this thing that current account is basically the account in which neither any liability nor any asset is created. It is a type of account in which neither a liability nor an asset is created. Okay. So how many of you guys understood this? Neither a liability nor an asset is created. Okay. How many of you understood this? If yes, okay. Okay. I am getting one yes, one no. Okay, few are saying yes, few are saying no. Don't worry. Asset liability क्या होता है? Asset liability क्या होता है? वो भी हम लोग we'll go from the scratch. We'll go from the bottom. Okay, and we'll try to understand what is asset, what is liability now. Okay, so we'll discuss that also. Don't worry. For those who are saying no, don't worry. Anyways, yes. So let's continue with this. Current account includes the transaction of goods and services. That is income between the residents and the rest of the world. Okay. Here, it can be a surplus or a deficit. It can be a surplus or a deficit. Theoretically, the current account balance should be zero. Current account balance theoretically zero होना चाहिए. ठीक है, but in the real world this is improbable. If the current account has a surplus or a deficit, it tells us something about the government and the state of economy in the question, both on its own and in comparison to the other world markets. In comparison to the other world markets. Okay, so these two statements will understand. Hold on for 1 or 2 slides. ठीक है, थोड़ा वेट करो. लास्ट के 2 स्टेटमेंट शायद से नहीं समझे होंगे सरप्लस और डेफिसिट के बारे में, वो हम लोग थोड़े टाइम में डिस्कस करेंगे. ठीक है, एंड करंट अकाउंट के 2 पार्ट्स है, विच इज विजिबल जिसमें गुड्स आएगा और इनविजिबल जिसमें सर्विसेज आएगा. विजिबल जिसमें गुड्स आएगा मतलब क्या? इट इज समथिंग विच इज टैंजिबल. And if you are exporting stuffs which are tangible, if you are sending out stuffs which are tangible, it is called as what? Exports of goods. In exports of goods in current account of BOP. Okay, if you are importing things which is tangible, you will say import of goods which are a part of current account in the balance of payments. ठीक है, और ये export और import will decide आपके पास कितना wealth आ रहा है. If suppose you are exporting more than you are importing, then you are getting more wealth. ये आप एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हो बट यू आर गेटिंग वेल्थ, राइट? आप कुछ बेच रहे हो इन द इंटरनेशनल मार्केट बट यू आर गेटिंग सम वेल्थ इन रिटर्न. ठीक है, दैट इज यू गेनिंग वेल्थ. सो इफ योर एक्सपोर्ट्स आर मोर देन इंपोर्ट्स, you gain wealth. That is called as current account surplus. Same is the case of invisibles also. In the case of invisible services also, invisibles के case में भी, if you are exporting service, like in this case of insurance, जो हम लोग ने इंडियन कंपनी ने एक ब्रिटिश शिप को इंश्योरेंस दिया था. So what were we doing? We are exporting services. And when we are exporting services, basically what are we doing? हम लोग उसको सर्विस दे रहे हैं कि मैं तुझे इंश्योरेंस कवर करूंगा, बट एट द सेम टाइम वो क्या कर रहा है? वो हम लोग को प्रीमियम दे रहा है. सो इट इज primarily doing what? We are gaining wealth in this export of service also. So in the export of services, you gain wealth. In the import of services, you lose wealth. In the import of services, you lose wealth. Again here also, if exports, a country export ज़्यादा कर रहा है as compared to its imports, in the case of services, we will say it's surplus, and this will help in what? This will say that current account is surplus. Current account, there will be current account surplus, and accordingly, we'll say it is added into the BOP. It is there into the BOP. Okay, let's read about this. Yes. So visibles वाला part मतलब क्या? Visibles मतलब merchandise transaction भी कहते हैं उसको. ठीक है. And a major part of transaction in foreign trade is in the form of export and import of goods, that is visible items. Okay, the money earned from the Indian exports of goods, example cars sold to Nepal, is credited or added to this account, while payment for the imported goods, example American aircraft sold in India, are debited. Achha, now I'll give you one more example. You tell me the answer to this question. हम लोग ने जब रफाल मंगाया हम लोग ने फ्रांस से, what was it? In that case, is the country's wealth earned or wealth is gone? In that case, the country का wealth earned हुआ है, wealth gone. It is imports. Yes, the wealth is gone. Very true, the wealth is gone. What if we could have made Rafale in India? We would have saved precious wealth which is going out right now. Are you getting? That's the reason why the government is now pushing forward the idea of कि क्या हम लोग को Indian indigenization of defense हम लोग को करना चाहिए. इंडिजिनाइज डिफेंस मतलब क्या? कि डिफेंस इक्विपमेंट जो हम लोग बाहर से भी परचेज कर रहे हैं वो इंडियन इंडिजिनाइज होना चाहिए. मतलब इंडियन कंपनी खुद R&D कर रही है, रिसर्च कर रही है और खुद इंडियन कंपनी बना रही है. ठीक है, दिस इज नॉट समथिंग व्हिच the government has realized of late. The government knew from ages and they have been attempting since ages. इसके लिए तो there is something called as HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics. Okay, Julie, I guess if you have a question, we can discuss the question in the tail end, in the last Q&A wala part, or maybe after the end of this chapter we'll discuss once again. Okay, so just a second, someone there in the waiting room. Okay, so that's the example of what? That's the acha. On the other hand, if I tell you one more example, अभी डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प में थोड़े महीनों पहले, you must remember the drug's name hydroxychloroquine. डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प ने इंडिया से हाइड्रोक्सीक्लोरोक्विन मांगा था. ठीक है, वो सिचुएशन में इंडिया ने हाइड्रोक्सीक्लोरोक्विन दिया भी था. What is happening in this case? Will the country's wealth increase or decrease? I hope you remember the drug hydroxychloroquine. ठीक है, very true. Correct. It will increase. Why? Because we are exporting and the wealth will increase. True that. We are exporting, the wealth will increase. So this is nothing but the current example of what is exports, what is imports. It is used for sanitization. Rather, we can say it's used for hydroxychloroquine, used for this, right? It was actually an anti-malarial drug earlier. but now it is also showing some kind of results against COVID. But later, yes, but later Anthony Fauci, the head, the scientific head of USA, he also said this thing that it's not showing certain results. Okay, so hydroxychloroquine is not a foolproof solution, but yes, it can be used at times. It is, in fact, to my knowledge, it is also used at the preliminary stage. This preliminary stage of COVID is used. Hydroxychloroquine is used in the preliminary stage. Then there is remdesivir, then there is tocilizumab. Okay, but then at the preliminary stage, we have hydroxychloroquine still being used in India also. Okay, so we understood this. इसमें हम लोग ने example क्या किया था? हम लोग ने example गिना था car if we sold to Nepal, so we are exporting cars, we are getting money. On the other hand, we are taking aircraft from USA, so we are importing money, we are losing wealth. So ये merchandise transaction, which is a part of this, we realize this. Okay, the next was invisibles. Yes, the service transactions or invisible trade. It includes a large variety of non-factor services known as invisible items sold and purchased by the residents of a country to and from the rest of the world. So basically, invisible items, matlab kya? Services. Just remember, services. We can't see services, right? If I tell you about insurance, you won't be able to see insurance. If I tell you about mutual funds, you won't be able to see it. It's something which is invisible. Okay, so invisible part mein services aayega. Payments are either received or made to the other countries for the use of these services. For example, the income earned from the sale of Indian services abroad, is known as invisible export. Example, यही example हम लोगों ने discuss किया था, that insurance premium paid by a British ship owner to an Indian broker or Indian insurance company. ठीक है, British ship owner Indian insurance company से insurance ले रहा है, that will be something which is an example of service export. ऐसे ही the other is also true, that when Indian residents spend money on foreign services, example, a week's accommodation in London. So when people from India go to London for their vacations and everything, what are they doing? They are going there and they are taking the benefit of their hospitality industry, and वहाँ के hotels are giving us the services. वहाँ के hotels are giving us the services, and in that thing, when they are giving us the services, basically what is happening, we are importing services and we are giving the wealth. We give them in pound, but we are getting services of staying there. Okay, so that's an example of what? That's an example of service import, wherein we'll lose wealth, wherein India will lose wealth. Fine. So this kind of transition are called as invisibles or service transition or invisible trade. Cool. So this was current account. ये हम लोगों ने समझा. Next was capital account. Capital account समझना बाकी है. Capital account समझते. Let's try to understand this. Okay. So capital account of balance of payment records all those transactions between the residents of a country and the rest of the world, which causes a change in the assets or liabilities of a resident of the country or the government. Okay, this is something which I was talking about. Okay, जो एक country का asset और liability change करेगा. Okay, that is something which is the idea of capital account. Now, assets और liabilities का basic मतलब आपको समझना चाहिए. हम लोग ने एक बार assets और liabilities पहले भी discuss किए थे जब banking sector था. ठीक है, जब मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, बैंकिंग सेक्टर वैसे हुआ नहीं पूरा बट मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी किया, एंड आई टोल्ड यू मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी बेसिकली बैंक के पर्सपेक्टिव से होता है. सो ट्राई टू रिमेंबर दैट पर्टिकुलर लेक्चर, एंड आई आस्क यू अ वेरी बेसिक क्वेश्चन राइट नाउ, अगेन समथिंग व्हिच वी हैव लर्नड अर्लियर आल्सो. सो इफ आई एम अ बैंक एंड देयर आर 100 डिपॉजिटर्स who are willing to deposit 10 rupees in my bank account, so I finally have what, 100 into 10, so I have total 1000 deposits in my bank account. ठीक है, I am a bank, I have 1000 deposits of 100 depositors. ठीक है, on the other hand, मैंने क्या किया, मैं एक बैंक हूं, मैंने कुछ लोगों को लोन दिया. ठीक है, so I have given few businessman A, businessman B, businessman C, businessman 4, ऐसे करके मैंने 4-5 लोगों को मैंने लोन दिया, and they are the one जिन्होंने मुझसे borrow किया था. So I had given them the loan. जो मेरे पास 1000 डिपॉजिटर्स के पैसे आए थे, वो मैंने 1000 डिपॉजिटर्स के पैसे मैंने उनको दे दिए. सो दिस इज माय राइट हैंड साइड, दिस इज माय राइट हैंड साइड जहां से मैंने डिपॉजिटर्स से पैसे लिए, एंड दिस इज माय लेफ्ट हैंड साइड जहां पे मैंने बोरोवर्स को लोन दिया. व्हाट विल बी विद द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ बैंक? बैंक का एसेट क्या है? एसेट क्या है? व्हाट इज अ बैंक्स एसेट? इज इट द डिपॉजिटर्स और इज इट द बोरोवर्स? व्हाट इज एन एसेट ऑफ अ बैंक? Come on, we have discussed this. Yes. Nahi, Shraddha, just think. Shraddha, I guess, who was the one who answered that? Arshid, think on the answer. Someone also is. Arsh. Harshit, think about the answers. Yes, the answer is borrowers. Borrowers are the assets. Why are borrowers the assets? The primary reason is क्योंकि मैंने उनको आज पैसे दिए, और asset मतलब क्या होता है? ऐसी कोई चीज जो आपको फ्यूचर में रिटर्न्स देगी. So borrowers वो लोग हैं जिसको मैंने आज, true that किरण, borrowers वो है जिनको मैंने आज पैसे दिए, फ्यूचर में वो मुझे वो पैसे प्लस थोड़ा बहुत प्रिंसिपल प्लस इंटरेस्ट वो लोग वापस मुझे देंगे. So that is an asset for me. I have an asset. Asset मतलब क्या? Something which will give me returns in the future. On the other hand, liability मतलब क्या? जो मुझ पे burden है, that is liability. मेरा liability कौन रहेगा? If I'm a bank, for me the liability is the depositors. ठीक है, depositors are liability. जो जिन्होंने मुझे पैसा दिया था और मुझे फ्यूचर में उनको पैसा देना है. So that's a burden on me, right? So liability depositors, as Kiran has written, liability depositors, asset borrowers. Liability depositors, assets are borrowers. Just remember this. ऐसे ही, with the same perspective, try to understand this. If India, अगर India कहीं India या India के residents जो भी है, let's consider Mukesh Ambani. Mukesh Ambani goes and purchases some company in Britain, in Britain, in UK. He purchases some company in UK. Will that be an asset or a liability? Will that be an asset or a liability? We'll consider that as an asset. We'll consider that as an asset. ठीक है. ऐसे ही सपोज टाटा अभी जाके नैस्डैक में टाटा जाके टाटा रतन टाटा हैज नैस्डैक में जाके उसने नेटफ्लिक्स के शेयर्स परचेस किए. ठीक है, उसने नेटफ्लिक्स के शेयर्स परचेस किए या फिर अमेज़न के शेयर्स परचेस किए या कुछ भी किया उसने. ठीक है, व्हाट विल दैट बी? दैट अगेन विल बी व्हाट? इट विल अगेन बी एन एसेट. It will be an asset. Why? Because we are putting our money somewhere else on which we are expecting some returns in the future. We are expecting some returns in the future. Okay. ऐसे ही suppose India, Indian, the government of India, if we gain profits, we have, see, it's not always certain that we gain profits, but there is a possibility of gaining profits. Okay, we basically run on profits. Not always we earn profit, but then there's a possibility of earning profits. But anyways, if suppose government of India gives some loan to another individual, maybe another country, maybe Bangladesh, क्योंकि बांग्लादेश को भी थोड़ा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वगैरह डेवलप करना है और वी से दिस थिंग, हाँ तुझे इंफ्रा डेवलप करना है, आई गिव यू लोन. सो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया अगर सपोज बांग्लादेश को लोन दे रहा है, ठीक है, दैट्स एन एग्जांपल ऑफ व्हाट? दैट्स अगेन एन एग्जांपल ऑफ व्हाट with respect to government of India? That is an example of an asset. Correct. That's an example of an asset. Do that. So क्या है, यहाँ पे भी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया इज गिविंग अ लोन टू बांग्लादेश विद एन एक्सपेक्टेशन कि हाँ कल जाके बांग्लादेश मुझे रिटर्न देगा, प्रिंसिपल प्लस इंटरेस्ट थोड़ा बहुत देगा. ठीक है, सो दैट्स समथिंग व्हिच इज एन एसेट. जस्ट ट्राई टू रिमेंबर दिस. ठीक है, और लायबिलिटी मतलब क्या? लायबिलिटी मतलब इंडिया में किसी ने, फॉर एग्जांपल अमेज़न इंडिया में आया और यहाँ पे आके बहुत ज्यादा जमीन वगैरह कर दिया. ठीक है, ही इन्वेस्टेड इन रियल एस्टेट इन इंडिया. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, he came in India, he invested in real estate in India. What will that be? What will that be? इंडिया के अकाउंट के हिसाब से what will that be? Jeff Bezos came in India, he invested in real estate in India. What will that be? Will that be an asset or a liability? Correct. That will be a liability on India. क्योंकि इंडिया को जेफ बेजोस ने तो इंडिया में इन्वेस्ट किया है रियल एस्टेट में, उसको ऐसा लग रहा है कि हाँ उसके लिए ये एसेट रहेगा क्योंकि ही इज एक्सपेक्टिंग सम प्रॉफिट. बट ऑन अस इट इज अ लायबिलिटी, राइट? बिकॉज वी हैव टू पे हिम बैक. आज हम लोग के पास पैसे हैं, ठीक है, वी हैव द वेल्थ टुडे, ठीक है, बट वी विल हैव टू रिटर्न दिस वेल्थ टुमारो टू जेफ बेजोस अगेन. ठीक है, वी विल हैव टू रिटर्न हिम द वेल्थ अगेन. ठीक है, सो दैट्स अ लायबिलिटी ऑन इंडिया. दैट्स अ लायबिलिटी ऑन इंडिया. आई विल गिव यू वन मोर एग्जांपल. ये इंडिविजुअल बेसिस पे था, ठीक है, ऐसे ही एक लायबिलिटी का एक नेशनल बेसिस पे लेट्स कंसीडर दिस थिंग that right now let's consider IMF. Yeah, IMF एक काम करते हैं, IMF भी नहीं, let's consider some other country, maybe Japan. Japan gave us some loan. ठीक है, for making the metro project. It's a very cheap loan, but then Japan gave India the loan. What will that be? That again will be asset or liability? Liability, very true. वो जापान के लिए asset है, but अपने लिए liability है. ठीक है, जापान के लिए it's an asset, but for us it is a liability. Yeah, true that. So I'm certain now you have understood the concept of asset and liability. Right now, I was giving one more example of this. I was trying to give one more example of this. That if IMF, I hope you know this issue, but then if IMF gives loan to Pakistan, ये पाकिस्तान का asset रहेगा या liability रहेगा? If IMF gives loan to Pakistan, will that be an asset or liability of Pakistan? It's a liability of Pakistan. I hope you know this. ये भी recent news में था. किनको किनको ये मालूम है? Have you heard of this? How many of you guys know this? If yes, type yes. Pakistan is in deep economic distress right now. Deep economic distress right now. Okay, yes, very true. That's the answer. IMF had given some loan. Apart from IMF, also long-term friend of Pakistan had also supported Pakistan a lot. ठीक है, कौन? China. China ने भी under the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. अभी ये BRI हम लोग ने शायद से discuss किया है, Belt and Road Initiative. I don't recall. But then One Road, One Belt. Have you heard of this new Silk Route? सुना आपने इस new Silk Route? One Road, One Belt. Have you heard this? If you are saying yes, you must be aware of this. This is very important. Have we discussed this already? Have we discussed this already? Just say already if yes. I mean, there are so many yes. I will be okay. I guess okay, fine. Okay. In that case, but yes, under the Belt and Road Initiative, चाइना ने भी पाकिस्तान को बहुत सारा लोन दिया हुआ है, बट अभी चाइना ने इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है पाकिस्तान के अंदर. That's not something which is Pakistan's own wealth. That is a liability on Pakistan which Pakistan will have to return back tomorrow. Okay, so that's the idea of export and import. I mean, we can't say export and import in the case of capital account, but then yes, that's the idea of wealth coming and wealth going in the case of capital account. Let's read further. Let's read further. I hope now you understood what assets and liabilities are. Assets and liability. हम लोग asset और liability के time पे we are not selling any goods or we are not selling any services or any of these things. We are not transacting on goods or services. Basically, we are sending money from one country to another. Okay, and that money becomes an asset or a liability. That money becomes an asset or a liability. That's the reason why I had written this. कि capital account में एक country का asset और liability change होता है. On the other hand, current account में एक country का asset और liability change नहीं होता. Okay, let's read further about this. Let's read further about this. So it is related to claims and liabilities of financial nature. Capital account is concerned with financial transfers. So it does not have direct effect on the income, output, and employment of a country. Yes, it's true. It's true. Suppose Jeff Bezos India में एक share कोई company के shares में invest कर रहा है. It won't have a direct impact on the income, output, and employment of the country. ठीक है, it won't have direct impact. On the other hand, suppose India की कुछ goods बहुत ज़्यादा popular हो गए abroad. और that's the reason why India में production बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ रहा है. So that then we can say yes, it has a direct impact on production, output, employment of a country. So current account has a direct impact. Capital account doesn't have a direct impact on the income, output, and employment of a country. Going on, capital account में भी दो parts हैं, which is foreign investment, the loans. We have taken the example of both of these. दोनों के हम लोग ने example गिन भी लिए. Foreign investment मतलब क्या? It can be incoming or outgoing. Incoming मतलब क्या? Incoming investment. अच्छा, Indian investment made by MNC in India. Okay, that's incoming investment. Investment made by MNC, multinational company in India. Amazon India में invest कर रहा है. That's an incoming investment. ठीक है. On the other hand, investment made by Indian company in the foreign country will cause an outgoing foreign investment. ठीक है. Indian ने कोई मुकेश अंबानी ने UK में land खरीदा. मुकेश अंबानी ने UK में कोई तो एक दूसरे कंपनी के shares में invest किया. ठीक है. That's an outgoing foreign investment. Are you getting it? ठीक है. ऐसे ही there is something called as loans. और loans में क्या रहेगा? It can be incoming or outgoing. The loans can be incoming or outgoing. For example, India giving loan to Nepal is recorded as outgoing capital account. On the other hand, India getting the loan from World Bank is recorded as incoming capital account. It's called as incoming capital account. ठीक है. हम लोग अगर suppose World Bank हम लोग को loan दे रहा है, so that is incoming capital account. And जब भी हम लोग नेपाल को loan दे रहे हैं, so that's an outgoing in capital account. Cool. I guess इतना हुआ था last time. Maybe इसके आगे नहीं हुआ. Current account balance वगैरह, capital account balance, CAB नहीं हुआ. Are you clear? Have you understood whatever we have discussed until now? If yes, type yes in the chat box. Yeah, sure. Just let me know when you're done on the home. Ashit, just let me know. Okay. Any other thing in news? Any other thing you want to discuss? Okay, Harshit is already done. Let's do one thing. Let's discuss that in the Q&A. ठीक है, कोई current affairs वगैरह बाद में Q&A में discuss करेंगे. So let's move on. The next is current account balance. Let's try to understand this. क्या होता है current account balance? So ये याद रखना, current account balance बहुत important है. Current account balance something is very important. See, now many times we learn in economics many terms which we actually do not use in the real life. But then CAB, current account balance, is not one of those terms. It is used heavily. It's used frequently in all of your economics all of your economics reports. So if you see economic survey, if you see this year's budget or the upcoming budget जो भी next year आएगा, budget देखोगे या फिर आप इकोनॉमिक सर्वे पढ़ोगे, आपको मालूम पड़ेगा करंट अकाउंट बैलेंस बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट मैटर है. समथिंग व्हिच इज अ वेरी क्रूशियल, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट मैटर. ठीक है, सो पे अटेंशन, लिसन टू दिस. In current account, receipts from exports of goods and services and unilateral receipts are entered as credit or positive items, and payments for imports of goods and services, unilateral payments, are entered as debit or negative items. The net value of credit and debit balance is the balance on the current account. ठीक है, सो बेसिकली ये क्या बोल रहा है कि जब भी हम लोग एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, जब भी हम लोग एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, इट विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज पॉजिटिव. एक्सपोर्ट विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज पॉजिटिव. जब भी इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, इट विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज नेगेटिव. इट विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज नेगेटिव. ठीक है, सो इफ आई जस्ट राइट हियर, इफ आई कैन जस्ट राइट हियर, जस्ट वन सेकंड. Yes, so if I see current account balance, if I write here, it will be considered as surplus if there is exports greater than imports. If there is exports more than the imports. अगर exports imports से ज्यादा है, इसका मतलब क्या कि हम लोग we are exporting a lot, we are taking a wealth. बहुत ज्यादा पैसा इंडिया में आ रहा है, थोड़ा इंपोर्ट कर रहे तो बहुत कम इंडिया से पैसे जा रहा है. ठीक है, so that is nothing but the idea of what? That is the idea of surplus. Capital account current, sorry, it's current account surplus. We will call it current account surplus. ठीक है, at the same time current account deficit क्या रहेगा? Current account deficit मतलब क्या? Current account deficit मतलब exports is less than imports. Exports is less than import. मतलब क्या कि इंडिया बहुत कम एक्सपोर्ट कर रहा है, हार्डली कुछ पैसा इंडिया में आ रहा है. ठीक है, we are hardly gaining any wealth, but on the other hand we are importing a lot and spending a lot of wealth. ठीक है, so that's the situation of what? Current account deficit. एक करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस है, दूसरा करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट है. एक करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस है, दूसरा करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट है. नाउ टेल मी इंडिया में क्या ज्यादा लगता है आपको? इज इंडिया मोर इंपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड कंट्री और एन एक्सपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड कंट्री? अच्छा, टेल मी जस्ट, ओके, लेट मी मेक अ कंपैरिजन आल्सो. इंडिया विज़ चाइना, इन कौन सा कंट्री एक्सपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड कंट्री? इंडिया विज़ चाइना कौन सा कंट्री एक्सपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड कंट्री? आंसर एनीवेज, बट देन yes, China is an export oriented country. China is an export oriented country. Okay, India on the other hand is an import oriented country. India import, yes, correct, very true. India is an import oriented country, China is an export oriented country. So let me tell you this thing. China के केस में हमेशा ये situation है. China के केस में this is a situation where they tend to find current account balance to be in this surplus. They tend to find current account balance in the surplus. This is for the case of China. This is the case of China. In the case of India, if I just write here, India के केस में current account balance हमेशा deficit रहता है, हमेशा deficit होगा. India के केस में current account balance is always deficit, and that's something which is a point of concern. India के केस में current account balance deficit है, that's something which is a point of concern. क्यों? क्योंकि deficit के time में we know this thing कि India से wealth जा रहा है. जब ये current account balance negative रहेगा, it means India से current account balance deficit रहेगा, इसका मतलब India से wealth जा रहा है. ठीक है, on the other चाइना में वेल्थ आ रहा है, चाइना में वेल्थ आ रहा है. That's the reason why we had all these talks about banning China, क्योंकि हमारे करंट अकाउंट बैलेंस में भी डेफिसिट क्यों हो रहा है? क्योंकि हमारा इंपोर्ट्स जो भी था, इंपोर्ट्स बहुत ज्यादा, ठीक है, हमारा चाइना से आ रहा था, बहुत सारा इंपोर्ट हमारा चाइना से आ रहा था. और हम लोग ऐसा बोल रहे थे कि एक तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल चाइना इतना ज्यादा सस्ते में माल वगैरह बेचता है हम लोग को, तो हम लोग इतना और चाइना से इंपोर्ट भी करते हैं. ठीक है, दैट्स द रीजन व्हाई इंडिया और चाइना के बीच में जो ट्रेड डेफिसिट, व्हाट वी कॉल एज ट्रेड डेफिसिट, was something which is very huge. The trade deficit was huge. जिसमें चाइना एक बहुत रिसीविंग एंड पे था और इंडिया बहुत ज्यादा पेइंग एंड पे था. Are you getting it? Are you getting it? Are you understanding this? Yes, just type yes if you are with me. Are you with me, guys? Cool. So इतना समझा करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट और करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस क्या है. ये याद रखना, इंडिया का बहुत आज तक वी हैव नॉट एंटर इनटू करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस वाला स्टेट, वी हैव बीन इन द स्टेट ऑफ करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट. अभी प्रॉब्लम क्या है, हम लोग करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट है और करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट थोड़ा बहुत वी कैन बेयर थोड़ा बहुत करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट, बट दिस करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट शुड नॉट बी टू मच. It should not be too much. Current account deficit should be limited. It should be to a certain extent. It should not be too much. So we have to keep an upper limit on current account deficit कि कितना 1%, 2%, 3% उतना होना चाहिए, उससे ज्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट. ठीक है, ये याद रखना. बट इंडिया का ये टारगेट है, इंडिया ने अचीव किया है नहीं किया. ठीक है, सो आर करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट इज ऑल्सो लॉट. ऑल्दो वी हैव रियलाइज दिस कि हाँ करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट है, हम लोग करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट में ही रहेंगे. ठीक है, हम लोग ने ये डाइजेस्ट कर लिया है, बट वी हैव स्टिल नॉट रिड्यूस द करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट. We have to reduce it to something, at least a bare minimum amount. ठीक है, and if possible zero, and अगर उसके बाद भी possible तो surplus लेके जाओ. But just yes, but this is the state right now of India. Okay, now let me do one thing. Let me read the next slide. I mean next part. Yes, let's try and read this. A current account deficit means the value of imports of goods and services. Okay, let me erase this actually. Yes. A current account deficit means the value of imports of goods and services, investment in income and transfers is greater than the value of exports. It indicates net flow of foreign exchange. A current account surplus means the value of imports of goods and services, investment income transfers is less than the value of exports. It indicates net inflow of foreign exchange. This is what we had written, right? This is what we had written. If I just write here, current account deficit means the value of imports. Current account deficit. We are talking about current account deficit. Okay. So current account deficit. Okay. Actually, try to understand. Current account deficit मतलब क्या? Current account balance जो है वो deficit है. Deficit मतलब हम लोगों ने अभी just लिखा था, in which imports are greater than exports. यही है. This is the statement. This is what this statement is saying. Or current account balance, it will be considered surplus when we say that the exports is greater than imports. When the exports is greater than imports. Are you getting it? So that's current account surplus. And the other is current account deficit. Just remember this. What are we facing? What problem are we facing? We are facing the problem of current account deficit. We are facing the problem of CAD, current account deficit. Just remember the acronym also. CAD, current account deficit. We are facing the acronym, the problem of current account deficit. Cool. Moving on. That's the situation of current account balance of India. And let's try to analyze the situation of capital account balance of India. Capital account balance of India. Uska kya situation? Okay. So the transactions which lead to inflow of foreign exchange, like receipt of loan from abroad, sale of assets, or share in foreign countries, etc., are recorded on the credit or debit. Okay. Not audible. Just one second. Okay, guys, can you hear me now? There's someone else who's speaking. Okay, just a second. I think I need to mute everyone. Okay, not audible. It's not visible. Okay, I hope visibility and this is proper. I'm sharing the screen now. Just one second. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's discuss this once again. I guess you had missed it. So let me erase this part. Yeah, let's read it once again. जैसे हम लोगों ने करंट अकाउंट में देखा था कि कुछ ऐसी चीजें हो सकती है which will be considered as positive and the others will be considered as negative. ऐसे ही कैपिटल में भी कैपिटल अकाउंट में भी ऐसा होता है that few things will be considered as positive, few things will be considered as negative, or you can say few things will be considered as credit, the other things will be considered as debit. You can just remember this. ठीक है, तो ऐसे ही let's read this. A transaction which leads to inflow of foreign exchange. The transaction which leads to inflow of foreign exchange. अभी foreign exchange इंडिया में कैपिटल अकाउंट में आएगा कैसे? By either receipt of loan from abroad, by getting some loan from abroad, or sale of assets, or share in foreign countries, For example, इंडिया ने मुकेश अंबानी ने कुछ सालों पहले, ठीक है, कुछ सालों पहले उसने यूके में लैंड परचेज किया था. वो टाइम पे इट वाज कंसीडर्ड एज व्हाट? इट वाज कंसीडर्ड एज एन एसेट. सो इंडिया का एसेट बड़ा था. बट when Mukesh Ambani, okay, when today Mukesh Ambani is selling off that asset, and bringing the wealth back in India. So इसमें इंडिया में wealth वापस आ रहा है. And whenever the wealth comes in India, that is called as inflow of foreign exchange. It is called as inflow of foreign wealth and recorded as a credit. ये याद रखना, ठीक है? Any inflow of wealth in India in capital account will be considered as credit. Inflow of wealth in India will be considered as credit. Similarly, उसका opposite क्या है? उसका opposite, let me take it from another pen. Okay, let me use this. Similarly, transactions which lead to outflow. Just remember, transactions which lead to outflow of foreign exchange. Transaction which lead to outflow of foreign exchange, like repayment of loans. तो मतलब हम लोग ने लोन पहले कभी लिया था और हम लोग वो लोन रीपे कर रहे हैं. So basically it's an outflow of wealth, right? It's an outflow of wealth. Or purchase of asset or shares in the foreign countries. So आज मैंने wealth दे के एक दूसरे कंट्री में मैंने एक रियल एस्टेट लैंड परचेज किया, ठीक है? So that's something which is an example of what the wealth is going. That's an outflow of wealth. And when there is an outflow of wealth, we show it as debit. It is also considered as negative side, but let's consider the word debit. ठीक है? So inflow of wealth मतलब क्या? The inflow of wealth मतलब, okay, inflow of wealth मतलब it will be considered as credit. Outflow of wealth will be considered as debit. ये याद रखना, ये दिमाग में रखना. And the net value of credit and debit is the balance of capital account. Is considered as a balance of capital account. ठीक है? यहाँ पे we are not exporting or importing. यहाँ पे और कुछ नहीं. यहाँ पे पैसे यहाँ से बाहर जा रही है. It's basically the income. It's basically the money which is going from one country to another. It's not actually goods or services. Money which is going from one country to another. Cool. So surplus in capital account. Just a second. Let me adjust the screen. Yeah. Surplus in capital account arises when credit items are more than debit items. Credit is more than debit. If I write in another word, it will be nothing but हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे लिखा था क्रेडिट मतलब क्या है? क्रेडिट मतलब इनफ्लो होता है. क्रेडिट मतलब इनफ्लो एंड डेबिट मतलब आउटफ्लो. सो इनफ्लो इज मोर देन आउटफ्लो. ऑफ कोर्स अगर इंडिया में ज्यादा वेल्थ आ रहा है as compared to wealth which is going, we'll call it as what? We'll call it as surplus. We'll call it as surplus. It's called as what? It's called as surplus. Capital account surplus. ऐसे ही, what is deficit? Just one second, someone there in the waiting room. Yeah. What is deficit? Deficit मतलब ऐसा situation in which debit items are more than the credit items. Debit items are more than credit items. मतलब क्या? Just write it here. I'll just one second. Let me use a different pen. Debit is more than credit. और इसका मतलब debit मतलब क्या था? Debit basically was outflow. Credit was inflow. So I can see outflow is more than inflow. इंडिया से वेल्थ ज्यादा जा रहा है एज कम्पेयर टू इंडिया में वेल्थ ज्यादा आ रहा है, ठीक है? सो आउटफ्लो इज मोर देन द इनफ्लो. अगर ये सिचुएशन है, इफ दिस इज द सिचुएशन, देन वी कॉल इट एज डेफिसिट. तो जैसे हम लोगों ने करंट अकाउंट में देखा था कि करंट अकाउंट में सपोज एक्सपोर्ट ज्यादा हो रहा है, मतलब पैसे ज्यादा आ रहे हैं, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस. ऐसे इसके केस में भी, कैपिटल अकाउंट में भी, अगर सपोज इनफ्लो ज्यादा आ रहा है एज कम्पेयर टू द आउटफ्लो, then it will be considered as what? It will be considered as surplus. Are you getting it? Have you understood this two slides, the last two slides about current account balance and capital account balance. What is surplus and what is deficit in each of these? Have you understood this? Just type clear in the chat box if yes, you have. Cool. Great. That's great. So keep this concept in mind. Keep this concept in mind. We are moving on. We are going to the next part. The next part is. Yes, so can you explain the first? Which point, Shraddha, exactly? This, I mean, which point? This slide, first point you're seeing? This slide, first point, or which slide? Okay, cool. So basically, I'm not going to discuss here. Let me just reread it for you. I think it is not that difficult for you to understand. Let me just read it for you. So yeah. The first line, मतलब ये, the transactions which lead to inflow of foreign currency. अभी एक काम करो. Inflow सिर्फ ये याद रखो. Example छोड़ो. ठीक है. Just remember the transactions which cause inflow of foreign wealth. Inflow of foreign wealth. जहाँ से foreign wealth इंडिया में आएगा. ठीक है. तो it will be recorded as what? It will be recorded as credit. It will be recorded as credit. कैपिटल अकाउंट की बात करें. So जहाँ से भी इंडिया में पैसे आ रहे हैं, it will be recorded as credit. Similarly, transactions which lead to outflow, will be considered as what? Will be considered as debit or negative. ठीक है. So ये याद रखो. These are the two sections of the sentence. एक section ऐसा बोलता है कि inflow अगर इंडिया में आ रहा है, it will be considered as credit. अगर इंडिया से outflow हो रहा है, it will be considered as debit. ठीक है. Inflow आ रहा है, credit. Outflow हो रहा है, debit. कोई भी सिचुएशन में इनफ्लो अगर आउटफ्लो से बेटर है, अगर ज्यादा है, इनफ्लो अगर आउटफ्लो से ज्यादा है, in that situation we'll call it as what? We'll call it as capital account surplus. We'll call it as capital account surplus. If inflow is more than the outflow, why? Because इंडिया में पैसे ज्यादा आ रहे हैं as compared to इंडिया से पैसे जा रहे हैं. ठीक है. कम पैसे जा रहे हैं, ज्यादा पैसे आ रहे हैं. So that's the situation. So that's considered as what? That's considered capital account surplus. On the other hand, दूसरा सिचुएशन क्या है? वो दूसरा सिचुएशन ऐसा है जिसमें इंडिया में आउटफ्लो ज्यादा हो रहा है एज कंपेयर टू द इनफ्लो. आउटफ्लो जब भी ज्यादा हो रहा है एज कंपेयर टू द इनफ्लो, दैट इज कंसीडर्ड अ सिचुएशन ऑफ व्हाट? करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट. दैट्स व्हाट वी आर रिटन इन द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड्स. सो डोंट गो इनटू निमोनिक्स एग्जैक्टली इनफ्लो क्या है, एग्जैक्टली आउटफ्लो क्या है. जस्ट रिमेंबर दिस. अगर इंडिया में मनी वेल्थ इन द टर्म्स ऑफ फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट और लोन, फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट या लोन के बेसिस के अंदर से इंडिया में पैसे ज्यादा आ रहे हैं, दैट विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज व्हाट? हायर इनफ्लो. दैट विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज हायर क्रेडिट, हायर क्रेडिट साइड. एंड ऑन द अदर हैंड, अगर सपोज इंडिया में लोन या फिर फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट के वे से इंडिया से पैसे बहुत ज्यादा जा रहे हैं, दैट विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज डेबिट. ठीक है. सो जस्ट रिमेंबर दिस, करंट अकाउंट सरप्लस एंड करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट. आई होप यू आर क्लियर. इफ यस, जस्ट टाइप यस. Shraddha, or if you want me to repeat, I can repeat it once again. Cool. That's great. That's great. So let's move on. The next is associated terms. Let's try to understand this. Okay, these are the two terms, associated term. Let's try to understand this. So the first term is balance of trade. First term is balance of trade. Balance of trade is different from balance of payments. Balance of payment मतलब जिसमें सब कुछ आ रहा है, जिसमें करंट अकाउंट भी आ रहा है, कैपिटल अकाउंट भी आ रहा है, और उसके अंदर विजिबल्स, इनविजिबल्स, लोन, इन्वेस्टमेंट वगैरह वो सब कुछ आ रहा है. That was considered as what? That was considered as balance of payment. Balance of trade मतलब क्या? Categorically talking about what difference between export of goods and import of goods is known as balance of trade. तो ये याद रखना, balance of trade मतलब सिर्फ export and import of goods we are talking about. We are not even talking about services. We are not even talking about services. We are talking only about goods, the exports and imports. So if I show you in that chart, whichever we have drawn there, if I show you in this chart, okay, so just one second here. Where was this? Yes. So ये chart में balance of payment, we already know what is balance of payment. We already know about that. But balance of payment के अंदर current account था, और वो current account के अंदर we had visibles वाला part. We had visibles वाला part. So it's not balance of payment मतलब a whole gamut of things. उसका एक बहुत छोटा सा पार्ट मतलब करंट अकाउंट का एक छोटा सा पार्ट which is visibles. Visibles के पार्ट में surplus या deficit will be called as what? Will be called as balance of trade now will be called as balance of trade. Are you getting it? Balance of trade ये सिर्फ merchandise transactions में ही होगा, उसमें ही होगा, दूसरे किसी में नहीं. Not even, we are not even considering services. We are not considering services. We are only considering goods wala part of current account of balance of payments. That will be considered as balance of trade. Just remember this. So balance of trade is not a generic term. It's something which deals with only tangibles part of it. It's something which deals with only tangible part of it. Good. Let's move on to the next term. The next term is about forex reserves. The next term is about forex reserve. Forex reserve. Just try to understand this now. Basically, forex reserve is क्या foreign exchange reserve. Let's try to read this. There are few terms which you will be exposed to. I won't elaborate much on that. Okay, we can, if you want, we can have a discussion on that later. But right now, not that required since it is a foundation batch. I won't be elaborating that much. Okay. So the total foreign currency of different countries in an economy possessed at a point of time is its foreign currency assets or reserve assets. Okay. And the forex reserves, this is called as forex reserve. You just ignore this two. Just ignore this two. The forex reserve, short form of foreign exchange reserves of an economy, is its foreign currency assets added with its gold, SDR reserves, and reserve tranche from IMF. And reserve tranche from IMF. Okay, SDR means special drawing rights. So let me tell you this. Let me give you a scenario. Actually, how should I tell you this? Until you we have not discussed anything about exchange rate, right? Inflation के part में have we accidentally discussed about exchange rate? एक country का exchange rate क्या होता है? Appreciation क्या होता है? Depreciation. Have we discussed that already? Yes or no, guys? We have. I thought I've discussed that in the regular batch. Depreciation, yes, we had already discussed this. Okay. Okay, थोड़ा revise करते, and then we'll come back to this forex reserves. We'll revise a bit. Okay, let me tell you what. Okay. Let's beyond even going to this, let's revise a bit, and let me take you to the whiteboard once. Okay, let's revise few things, and then we'll come back to this. Then we'll come back to the topic. Try to understand a country का exchange rate. First, let's try to understand a country's exchange rate. अभी exchange rate मतलब क्या? That country's value vis-a-vis some other, that country's currency's value vis-a-vis some other country's currency's value. Okay, for example, can anyone tell me the exchange rate right now of India vis-a-vis dollar? I mean, rupee vis-a-vis dollar. Does anyone have a rough idea? India का कितना है vis-a-vis dollar? Rupees value vis-a-vis dollar. I'm not sure if it's 81, but then so let's assume 80. Let's assume 80. Okay. So इसका मतलब क्या? We'll say India's rupee strength, Indian rupee strength. Indian rupees strength vis-a-vis dollar, Indian rupee strength vis-a-vis dollar if we compare. Now Kevin is saying it's somewhere near 80. So let's assume this thing, it's 80 or agar 73, Nakul says. Nakul must have shot, I think, have you searched online? Have you searched this online? Nakul? Okay, cool. So it must be 70 or it must be 80. Let's assume this thing. 70, 80 के बीच में we'll try and roam around. Okay, Rupees is saying 78, some is saying 74.95. ठीक है, वो day to day vary होता है. Must be 80 रहेगा, 70 रहेगा. Let's consider this thing. 73 है. Fine, cool. Let's consider 70. So try to understand when I say Indian rupees, when you are saying 78, 74, 73, 80, जो भी आप लिख रहे हो, इसका मतलब क्या होता है? इसका मतलब ये होता है that when you give $1, you get what? How many rupees in return? You get, let's assume 70 rupees. You get 70 rupees in return. मतलब $1 का वैल्यू इतना ज्यादा है, which is as good as 70 rupees. 70 rupees जितना $1 का वैल्यू. Are you getting it? That's the idea of exchange rate. अगर मुझे $1 परचेज कर रहा है तो मुझे 70 रुपीज देना पड़ेगा, तब जाके $1 मिलेगा. ठीक है, मैं जब 70 रुपीज दूंगा, at that point of time I'll get $1. ठीक है. On the other hand, suppose take it the reverse side, जब भी मैं $1 दूंगा तभी मुझे 70 रुपीज मिलेगा. because that's the idea. That's something which is called as the exchange. We can call this as an exchange rate. Okay, the rate at which we can exchange from one currency to another currency. Okay, when you give, let's assume it's 70. So when you give 70 rupees, then you get $1. That's the reason the dollar is more valuable. Dollar is more valuable. Now, if we understand this further, if we understand this further, can we show it like this, that ये जो value होता है ये 70, is it always fixed at 70 or 70 or 74? No, it keeps on moving. It keeps on moving. So it can at one point of time become even 60. On the other hand, it can also become 80. ये value 70 से 60 भी हो सकता है, 70 से 80 भी हो सकता है. ठीक है. So tell me this thing. By the way, in this scenario of $1 being 70 rupees, in this scenario, can we say this thing that Indian rupee is a bit weaker than the US dollars? Weaker क्यों? क्योंकि जब हम 70 रुपीस दे रहे तब जाके $1 आता है. मतलब $1 बहुत महंगा है. ठीक है, $1 बहुत महंगा है. ठीक है, it's weaker than the dollars. ठीक है, it's weaker than the dollars. And when I say this thing that the value has gone from 60 to 70 to 60, suppose value 70 to 60 हो गया. So I say $1 is equal to 60 rupees. I'm saying $1 is now equal to 60 rupees. इसका मतलब क्या? इंडियन रुपी का स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ा है या कम हुआ? What do you think? Indian rupee का स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ा है या कम हुआ? In this case, in the case when the rupee has gone from कम हुआ, you are saying, Himanshu is saying कम हुआ. ठीक है. Others, इंडियन रुपी का स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ा है या कम हुआ? जब भी वैल्यू 70 से 60 गया, the strength has it increased or decreased? Why I'm not getting बढ़ा? Okay, Smith is saying बढ़ा, Shraddha saying बढ़ा, increase. All are saying बढ़ा except for Himanshu. Himanshu, yes, the answer is बढ़ा. It's not कम हुआ. Himanshu, the answer is बढ़ा. Why? Because earlier मैं 70 रुपये दे रहा था तब जाके $1 आ रहा था. अभी मैं 60 रुपीज दूंगा तो भी $1 आएगा. ठीक है, इसका मतलब इंडियन रुपी का भी वैल्यू बढ़ा है, इंडियन रुपी का भी स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ा है. Are you getting it? It's not कम हुआ. जो हम लोग ऐसा दिख रहा है, we feel as if figuratively, quantitatively वो कम हुआ है, 70 से 60 हुआ है quantitatively, but नहीं, actually उसका स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ा है. ठीक है, its strength has increased. Just remember this. So this scenario, when the currency will go from 70 to 60, the scenario when the currency will go from 70 to, basically, if I show it like 70 to 60 like this, then we say it is what? Its strength has increased. Why? Because earlier 70 rupees से $1 आता, अभी 60 rupees में भी $1 आ रहा. Are you getting it? On the other hand, this scenario, जब भी Indian rupee vis-a-vis dollar का exchange rate $1 equal to 80 rupees हो गया. So when I write it here, $1 has become 80 rupees. ये टाइम पे इंडियन रुपी का स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ा या कम हुआ? Answer me this. The strength, has it increased or decreased? Correct. यहाँ पे भले 70 से हम लोग 80 गए figuratively, quantitatively we have already gone from 70 to 80, but actually has the strength increased? No, the strength is rather decreased. पहले 70 रुपीस में से $1 आ रहा था, अभी 80 रुपीस दो तब जाके $1 आएगा. मतलब इंडियन रुपी वीक हुआ है. ठीक है, and this is the weakened rupee, this is a strengthened rupee. जो strength होगा, that is called as appreciation. The strengthened rupee is called as appreciation, and the weakened rupee is called as what? Depreciation. Just remember these two terms, the terms of appreciation and depreciation. So अभी rupee 70 to 60 जा रहा है, vis-a-vis $1, we call it the rupee getting strength, and we call it as rupee appreciating. Okay, and when the rupee has gone from 70 to 80, we call it as rupee weakening, and we call it rupee depreciating. We call it rupee depreciating. Cool. So ये कुछ चीजें हम लोगों ने already discuss की है. ठीक है. I think, have we discussed this earlier already? Just tell me yes or no. And have we seen its impact on importers and exporters? Have we seen its impact on importers and exporters? Yeah, exactly. This was what I was willing to know, because I firmly felt कि शायद से ये मैंने यहाँ पे discuss नहीं किया. I had discussed this in the general वाला batch. Okay. So ये concept दिमाग में रखना. Now let's do one thing. Let's take a fresh page. Let's take a fresh page and let me write only this much part there. Only this much part I'll write there. Yeah. So just let's consider the situation. $1 equal to 70 rupees. ये एक सिचुएशन है। जब भी यहां से सपोज $1 बिकेम 80 रुपीज, ये एक सिनेरियो है, ठीक है। ये इसको हम लोग क्या बोलेंगे, विल कॉल इट एज डेप्रिसिएशन, जो हम लोगों ने लास्ट टाइम लिखा था, ठीक है, जो लास्ट स्लाइड में लिखा था, क्योंकि ये वीक हुआ है, ठीक है, इंडियन करेंसी वीक हुआ है। ऑन द अदर हैंड, व्हेन द करेंसी विल गो फ्रॉम $1 to 60 rupees, $1 to 60 rupees, we call it as what? We call it as appreciation. We call it as appreciation, ठीक है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे करेंसी का स्ट्रेंथ बड़ा है, ठीक है। 60 रुपीज में ही $1 आ रहा है, पहले 70 रुपीज दो तब जाके $1 आ रहा था, ठीक है। सो वी नो दिस थिंग, नाउ जस्ट फ्रेम दिस इन योर माइंड एंड लेट्स ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड विद द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ इंपोर्टर्स एंड एक्सपोर्टर्स। इंपोर्टर्स और एक्सपोर्टर्स के पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचते हैं, ठीक है। ये कंसेप्चुअल चीज है, ठीक है गाइस, रिमेंबर दिस इज अ कंसेप्चुअल थिंग, ठीक है। थोड़ा लास्ट टाइम तक हम लोगों ने पॉवर्टी वगैरह डिस्कस किया था, एम्प्लॉयमेंट डिस्कस किया, आई रियलाइज दिस थिंग वो थोड़ा इंटरेस्ट कम हो जाता है। सो आई ब्रॉट अगेन दिस थोड़ा कंसेप्चुअल पार्ट सो दैट the interest revives and we can move and deal with economics in a better manner. Okay, let's try to understand this. So when a currency was, let's try to consider this in the situation of importers and exporters. Okay, so let me draw a chart here, something like this. Let me adjust the screen first. So let's assume this is importers and this is exporters here. Oh, sorry. This is importers and this is exporters. Let's consider this situation. Okay. Like this, we'll try to understand. Okay. So let me actually erase these two parts. Yeah. So जब भी एक करेंसी पहले 70 पे था, अभी एक करेंसी 80 पे गया, मतलब करेंसी डेप्रिशिएट हुआ है, इंडियन करेंसी वीकन हुआ है, ये हम लोग समझे। अभी उसका इंपोर्टर्स और एक्सपोर्टर्स में फर्क समझते हैं। इंपोर्टर्स मतलब कौन रहता है? इंपोर्टर्स मतलब वो ऐसा बंदा रहेगा जो कुछ चीजें इंपोर्ट करता रहेगा, बाहर से कुछ लोग परचेस कर रहे हैं बट उसके अगेंस्ट वेल्थ दे रहा है, उसके अगेंस्ट वेल्थ दे रहा है। एंड लेट्स कंसीडर सिनेरियो ऑफ वन एप्पल मोबाइल, एप्पल का एक मोबाइल, लेट्स कंसीडर द सिनेरियो ऑफ एप्पल का मोबाइल, और इस एप्पल का एप्पल मोबाइल, लेट्स अज्यूम दैट, ठीक है। लेट्स कंसीडर सिनेरियो ऑफ, और लेट मी गिव यू वन मोर एग्जांपल, मे बी अ बेटर एग्जांपल। लेट्स कंसीडर सिनेरियो ऑफ ऑयल, लेट्स कंसीडर सिनेरियो ऑफ ऑयल, ठीक है। ऑयल का इन जनरल मार्केट में रेट्स है समवेयर नियर $1 पर बैरल, एक पूरा बैरल, हाइपोथेटिकल है, ऑल ऑफ दिस इज हाइपोथेटिकल। सो $1 पर बैरल में ऑयल वी कैन परचेज, ठीक है। इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में $1 दो तो एक बैरल ऑयल मिल जाएगा। सो अर्लियर जब भी 70 रुपीज था, एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम मैं एक बैरल के लिए हाउ मच आई यूज्ड टू स्पेंड, हाउ मच आई यूज्ड टू, लेट्स अज्यूम नॉट वन, लेट्स कंसीडर टू, ठीक है। तो तुम लोग थोड़ा कैलकुलेट करोगे, ठीक है, bare minimum calculation at least. Let's consider $2 per barrel, ठीक है। So ऑयल के केस में, नाउ टेल मी दिस थिंग, सपोज पहले 70 रुपीज था इंडियन रूपी विज़ डॉलर का वैल्यू, सो कितना यू हैड टू गिव तब जाके यू यूज्ड टू परचेज 1 barrel of oil? Yeah, the answer is 140. So you used to give 140 here, right? You used to give 140. Very true, you used to give 140. अभी सपोज ऐसा सिचुएशन आ गया, कि ऑयल इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में ऑयल का प्राइस $2 ही है, बट इंडिया में आपका करेंसी डेप्रिशिएट हुआ है फ्रॉम 70 to 80, द करेंसी वेंट फ्रॉम 70 to 80, द करेंसी वेंट फ्रॉम 70 to 80, तो अभी 80 है इंडियन रूपी विज़ डॉलर, हाउ मच विल यू हैव टू गिव नाउ? 160. Yes, the answer is 160. Very true. The answer is 160. The answer is 160. Very true. क्या हुआ ये सिचुएशन में? जब भी करेंसी डेप्रिशिएट हुआ, इंपोर्ट्स महंगे हो गए, मतलब पहले हम लोग थोड़ा ही we used to send outside for getting that much amount of imports. Now we have to send more outside to get earlier we just used to give 140 rupees to take 1 barrel of oil. Now we have to give 160 rupees to get 1 barrel of oil. That's more expensive and more wealth is going out of India. Are you getting it? So imports become expensive. Fine. ऐसे ही let's consider the other scenario. Let's consider the scenario of value वैल्यू अप्रिशिएटिंग. सपोज वही ऑयल $2 पर बैरल, बट एक्सचेंज रेट चेंज हो गया, एक्सचेंज रेट 70 से 60 हो गया. इसका मतलब अभी $1 इज इक्वल टू 60 रुपीज. तो अभी ये टाइम पे कितना रहेगा? हाउ मच विल वन बैरल ऑफ ऑयल कॉस्ट? इट विल कॉस्ट 120 रुपीज. इट विल कॉस्ट 120 रुपीज. आर यू रियलाइजिंग दिस कि पहले 160 था, ठीक है, उसके बाद 140, उसके बाद 120. मतलब जितना करेंसी एप्रिशिएट होगा उतना इंपोर्टर्स को सस्ता होगा, उतना ही चीज इंपोर्टर्स के लिए सस्ता होगा, ठीक है, उतना ही चीज द इंपोर्टर्स के लिए वो इतना चीपर होगा. सो इट विल बी गुड. एंड appreciating currency will be good for importers. Appreciating currency will be good for importers. Just remember in your mind. ठीक है, appreciation है तो importers के लिए अच्छा है. Let's just write this thumb rule kind of thing. Appreciation है for importers, it is good. Are you getting it? Let's consider the opposite scenario. Let's consider the scenario of Indian कोई Indian product जो बहुत internationally famous है. Let's consider, ऐसा होगा तो नहीं, बट मतलब ऐसा सोचने में क्या जाता है. ठीक है, लेट्स अज्यूम इंडिया का माइक्रोमैक्स या फिर लावा. आई गेस लावा इज इंडियन कंपनी, राइट? लावा और माइक्रोमैक्स, इज माइक्रोमैक्स एन इंडियन कंपनी? माइक्रोमैक्स सुना है? अच्छा, फ्यू आर सेइंग यस आल्सो. ओके, कूल. टेक्नोस्पार्क इज इंडियन. ओके, फाइन. टेक्नोस्पार्क मैंने सुना नहीं है एक्चुअली. बट देन लावा, यस, लावा इज आल्सो एन इंडियन कंपनी. लेट्स अज्यूम लावा. लावा का मोबाइल सबने देखा है, सब one of the least preferred mobile, not everyone purchases it. But then let's assume Lava ka mobile, and Lava ka mobile, let's assume it was costing somewhere near let's assume $3. Let's assume $3. International market mein Lava ka mobile is costing near $3. Tell me this, international market mein Lava ka mobile is costing you somewhere near $3. And let's consider this scenario of $1 being 70 rupees. तो इसका मतलब अगर $3 का इंडिया वाला एक्सपोर्टर $3 का लावा का मोबाइल बाहर बेचेगा, यूएस में बेच रहा है, यूएस में लावा का पॉपुलैरिटी इतना बढ़ जाएगा कि एप्पल से भी ज्यादा बिक रहा है. ऐसा हाइपोथेटिकल सिनेरियो हम लोग गिन के चल रहे हैं कि एप्पल से भी ज्यादा डिमांड लावा का है कि हम लोग को लावा परचेस करना. लेस लाइकली, बट देन लेट्स एज्यूम करने में जाए. ठीक है, सो लेट्स एज्यूम यूएस के मोबाइल में लावा का मोबाइल बहुत पॉपुलर हो गया और एक इंडियन एक्सपोर्टर था जो लावा एक्सपोर्ट कर रहा है, ठीक है, और वो लावा का मोबाइल वहां पे $3 का है. $3 का मोबाइल जब भी एक्सचेंज रेट $1 इक्वल टू 70 रुपीज है, कितने का रहेगा? ठीक है, व्हाट विल दैट मोबाइल कॉस्ट? इट विल कॉस्ट यू समवेयर इन 210. वेरी ट्रू, इट विल कॉस्ट यू अराउंड 210. दिस व्हाट यू हैव अंडरस्टूड दिस. सपोज कभी के बाद करेंसी डेप्रिशिएट हुआ, डेप्रिशिएट होकर 70 टू 80 रुपीज गया, 70 से 80 रुपीज गया. सो वहां पे उसको कितना मिलेगा? 240. वेरी ट्रू. वो $3 वहां पे तो $3 का ही बिक रहा है, बट उसको इंडिया में कितना मिलेगा? उसको 240 मिलेगा. उसको 240, उसको ज्यादा पैसा आ रहा है उसके हाथ में. पहले 210 ही आ रहा था, बट जब करेंसी डेप्रिशिएट हुआ 70 टू 80 गया तो उसको ज्यादा पैसा आ रहा है. ठीक है, ऐसे ही सपोज करेंसी अभी अप्रिशिएट हुआ और करेंसी 70 से 60 गया, इसका मतलब क्या? $1 इज इक्वल टू 60 रुपीज. हाउ मच दैट? वो वहां पे तो $3 में ही बेच रहा है, बट यहाँ पे उसको कितना मिल रहा है? उसको 180 मिल रहा है. मतलब कम मिल रहा है उसको, इंडिया में कम मिल रहा है. आर यू गेटिंग इट? सो फॉर एक्सपोर्टर्स, इफ आई जस्ट शो इन अ डिफरेंट मे बी पेन, लेट मी शो यू. For importers, what will be better? For importers, we know appreciation is better. For importers, appreciation is better because जितना ज्यादा appreciate हो रहा है उतना उनके लिए सस्ता हो रहा है. But for exporters, depreciation is better. For exporters, depreciation is better. क्यों? क्योंकि जितना depreciate हो रहा है उतना उनको ज्यादा पैसे मिल रहे हैं. They are getting more money in return. So the thumb rule remains. The thumb rule remains क्या? That यही मैं I'll just write this again here. That appreciating currency for importers is good and depreciating currency for exporters is good. क्योंकि जब भी depreciate होगा तभी उसको पहले से 180 रुपीज मिल रहा था. जब भी 1 रुपी इक्वल टू $60 था, तभी उसको सिर्फ 180 रुपीज मिल रहा था. अभी जब $1 इक्वल टू 80 रुपीज हो गया तो उसको 240 रुपीज मिल रहा है. मतलब ज्यादा पैसा मिल रहा है, ज्यादा पैसा मिल रहा है. सो फॉर हिम this will be great. Forgive me, I guess something happened. Can you see the screen, by the way? Can you see the screen? You can? Okay, just one second. I'm not able to find it. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. So this is a scenario of what? This, just remember these two thumb rules. Just remember these two thumb rules. ये क्या है? Depreciating currency good for exporters, appreciating currency good for importers. Have you understood this? किसी को इसमें कोई doubt? Anyone having any doubts in this? If no, just type clear. If doubts, ask me. That's great. That's great. So I'm happy that you understood this. Just remember, ये thumb rule याद रखना कि कभी भी no doubt. That's good. That's good. Now tell me this thing. हम लोगों ने ये पूरा thumb rule वगैरह समझ लिया. हमने पूरा situation समझा. ठीक है? Clear, right? I'll delete this part then because I need to teach you a bit more. Let me erase all this. I need to have that. Yeah. So we have already understood this. We have already tried to understand this thumb rule. Okay, depreciation is good for an exporter. Appreciation is good for an importer. Now, just a while back, we discussed हम लोगों ने इंडिया और चाइना का कंपैरिजन किया. हम लोगों ने इंडिया और चाइना का कंपैरिजन किया और हम इनफैक्ट आई डिडंट इवन आंसर. You guys answered. You guys said that one country was good for export, is an export-oriented country. The other country was an import-oriented country. Now, which was export-oriented country and which was import-oriented country? Just type and tell me in the chat box. Which was export-oriented country? Which country was export? China export. Yes, very true. Import कौन था? Import-oriented. India was import-oriented. Yes, true that. China export, India import. Very true. So ये बोल रहे थे, इसका मतलब क्या? Basically, we were saying the thing that in case of India and China, India में we are importing more than the exports. We are importing more than the exports. जबकि चाइना वाले एक्सपोर्ट ज्यादा कर रहे हैं इंपोर्ट से. So China is exporting more than the imports. China is exporting more than the imports. So India, which is an import-oriented country, जो import-oriented country है, उसके लिए exchange rate कैसा होना चाहिए? Should it be appreciating exchange rate or should it be depreciating exchange rate? We just discussed right now. Appreciation के लिए इंडिया के लिए क्या रहेगा? इंडिया के लिए exchange rate कैसा होना चाहिए? Should it be appreciating or depreciating? Yes, very true. For India, the exchange rate should be appreciating. Appreciating. India, the exchange rate should be appreciating. On the other hand, for China, China के फेवर में कौन सी बात होगी? The currency depreciating या currency appreciating? China के फेवर में depreciating currency. Very true. China के केस में depreciating currency will be more favorable currency. China के केस में depreciating currency will be more favorable currency. Now, for those of you guys who had searched, I mean, जिसने search किया था online, well and good. Search one more thing online and tell me what is the value of China's currency vis-a-vis US dollar. China's, even I'll do my search from here. You also tell me what is the value of China's currency vis-a-vis US dollar. Yes, what's the answer? Yeah, I wanted the otherwise. I wanted $1 equal to how many otherwise? Yes, you won. You won. Chinese का renminbi. Yes, very true. 6.87. 6.87. Now realize this thing. Compare it. India के साथ compare मत करो. Since we are using dollars, we are comparing dollars with each other. Try to understand Chinese economy right now. If I tell you China is a larger exporter than that of USA also right now. China is a larger exporter than that of the USA also right now. फिर भी चाइना अपना करेंसी जानबूझ के यूएस डॉलर से वीक दिखा रहा है. क्या है? They have said one. Let's not consider 6. Let's consider 7. 6.8 something something. Let's consider 7. So $1 equal to what? Somewhere near 7 yuan. I don't know yuan how it is. No, it didn't actually. We are going to learn something about it. We'll discuss something about that. Okay, but just try to understand right now. China's export is much more stronger than that of US also. China's export is much more stronger than that of US also. But still, look at the scenario of what dollars vis-a-vis China's yuan. They have deliberately tried and kept yuan weaker than dollar. They have kept yuan weaker than dollar. क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ पे भी अगर आप 7 युआन दोगे तब जाके $1 मिल रहा है. 7 युआन दोगे तब जाके $1 मिल रहा है. इंडिया के केस में देखो, इंडिया के केस में क्या है? इंडिया के केस में इंडिया इज एनीवेज वीकर देन दैट ऑफ यूएसए. India's currency is anyways weaker than that of US. इंडिया की सिचुएशन कैसी है? इंडिया की सिचुएशन somewhere near like what? Somewhere near $1 equal to 70. $1 is somewhere near 70 rupees. Are you getting it? So India के केस में we have $1 equal to 70 rupees. China के केस में China has the capacity to grow more. China has the capacity to grow more also. It has the capacity to grow even beyond maybe one तो क्या? Maybe it can be the other way around. It can be 1 yuan equal to some dollars, maybe $7 or $8. It can be that situation also. But China has deliberately kept its currency at a lower value. China has deliberately kept its value of the currency at a lower value. Okay, why? Because it wants depreciating currency. It wants a depreciating currency so that its exports are boosted. That's the reason why it is deliberately tried and kept its currency weaker than US. Are you getting it? यहाँ पे देखो currency कैसे? यहाँ पे the currency is weaker than US. Are you understanding this? Are you with me, guys? And to answer Kiran's question, Kiran, try to understand. China exactly do not follow something called as a floating exchange rate regime. Okay, China has something called as fixed floating exchange rate regime. वो हम लोग बाद में discuss करेंगे क्या होता है वो. Okay, but then I'll do one thing. I'll stop this right here, and we'll switch back to that. Okay, we'll switch back to the PPTs. Okay, let me go back to PPTs. Okay. Okay, forex reserves. Hold on for a while. Forex reserves we'll discuss later. Okay, so we'll discuss forex reserves later. Let me share the screen with you. Yeah. So forex reserve we'll discuss later. At the moment, try to understand because there are few terms in forex reserve which I won't be able to make you understand right now. Okay. Let's try to understand this term. Term called as fixed currency regime, and the other term called as floating exchange rate regime. Okay. There is something called as fixed currency regime, and then there is something called as floating exchange rate regime. Okay. Try to understand. अभी जो हम लोग बोल रहे हैं ना कि हम the way we are saying कि $1 equal to 70 rupees, $1 equal to 60 rupees, 80 rupees, ये कैसे decide हो रहा है? This is decided by the market dynamics, right? कि market में एक करेंसी का स्ट्रेंथ कैसा है उसके हिसाब से डिसाइड होता है कि वो करेंसी vis-a-vis डॉलर कैसा है. So if in the market Indian rupee is in higher demand, तो उसका स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ता है, उसका करेंसी अप्रिशिएट होता है. On the other hand, it's weaker in demand, उसकी करेंसी कम होगा. ठीक है, but then this is not the case which used to happen always. ये हमेशा ऐसा नहीं होता था. हमेशा क्या होता था? बहुत पहले, in fact, not even before this market dynamics, what used to happen? The countries used to have something called as a fixed currency regime. Countries used to have fixed currency regime. Fixed currency regime मतलब क्या? कि एक कंट्री डिसाइड करेगा कि ये तो ये ही, मतलब मेरा करेंसी का वैल्यू उतना ही होगा जितना गोल्ड का वैल्यू है. एक कंट्री ऐसा डिसाइड करता था. ठीक है, जितना गोल्ड का वैल्यू है उतना ही होगा. ठीक है, दैट वे द कंट्री यूज्ड टू से. ठीक है, और बाद में कंट्री यूज्ड टू कीप इट फिक्स्ड. हाँ, इतना तो 70 तो 70, उसके ऊपर नहीं, उसके नीचे आई वोंट मूव. ठीक है, बट आई कीप इट 70. सो ये बहुत पहले ऐसा होता था. क्या होता था? देयर यूज्ड टू बी समथिंग कॉल्ड एज द फिक्स्ड एक्सचेंज रेट रेजिम, फिक्स्ड करेंसी रेजिम. और इसमें क्या होता था? इसमें द करेंसी वाज नॉट अलाउड टू फ्लोट के 70 से 60 या 70 से 80 ऐसा नहीं अलाउ किया जाता था. द करेंसी वाज केप्ट कांस्टेंट बाय द आरबीआई ऑफ दैट कंट्री और द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ऑफ दैट कंट्री. Are you getting it? क्या था ये सिचुएशन? A fixed exchange rate is a regime applied by government or central bank that ties the country's official currency exchange rate to another country's currency or price of gold. मतलब बोलेगा कि गोल्ड का प्राइस जितना ऊपर नीचे गया उसके हिसाब से मेरा भी करेंसी का प्राइस ऊपर नीचे जाएगा, या तो फिर डॉलर का प्राइस जितना ऊपर नीचे गया उतने उसके हिसाब से मेरा भी करेंसी का जाएगा, या तो फिर they'll keep it fixed. They'll say कि हाँ 70 to 70 rupees ही. I won't allow the currency to float. I'll keep the currency fixed. Okay, so that was one scenario. That was the thing of the past. अभी भी कुछ countries they follow, especially in the Middle East and the North African countries. Few countries follow this, but then most of the countries have shifted away from this kind of regime. जिसमें currency was fixed. It was not allowed to depend. It was not allowed to float as per the market conditions. Okay, the purpose of a fixed exchange rate system is to keep a currency's value within a narrow band. Okay, the purpose of fixed exchange rate system is to keep the currency's value within a narrow band. Narrow band मतलब क्या 70 to 70 ही, उसके ऊपर नीचे हम लोग मूव नहीं करने देंगे. ठीक है. Fixed exchange rate provides certainty for exporters and importers. Importers और exporters को certainty है कि हाँ ऐसा नहीं होगा कल जाके appreciate हो जाएगा, depreciate हो जाएगा, ऐसा कुछ नहीं. ठीक है. It will remain constant. It will remain somewhere near 70 itself. ठीक है. It will hardly move. ठीक है. But it requires the country to maintain a large amount of gold or foreign currency like dollar, which is to be absorbed or released as and when necessary. ठीक है. So ये large amount of gold और foreign currency, इसका मतलब क्या? इसका मतलब ये कि basically एक country suppose अपने currency को gold के साथ peg कर रहा है, ठीक है, या फिर एक country suppose अपने currency को 70 पे fix करने का कोशिश कर रहा है. ऐसा नहीं है कि वो country का currency or exchange rate will not go beyond 70 or below 70. It can go above and below, but the governments have a proactive role to maintain here. So what will government do? Government will try to infuse more of that currency in the economy. If the currency is depreciating, the government will purchase a lot of gold or dollar from the market. If the currency is appreciating, government will infuse a lot of gold or dollar into the market. Are you getting this, by the way, or is it becoming too heavy for you today? Are you understanding this, or is it too heavy? If so, then we can deal with this next time also. Guys, I want your consensus right now. Do you want this topic to be dealt with today, or is it too heavy for you today? Because if I open a Pandora's box, I think will I realize that. Okay, if you saying one is saying today, others are saying heavy. Okay, we'll do one thing. Shift to Q&A. Fine, we'll do that. We'll deal with this topic of fixed currency exchange rate and floating currency exchange rate by next time. We'll deal with that. Right now, let's do one thing. Let's switch to the Q&A wala part. There is our karna. Yes. So, yeah, anything you guys want me to answer, anything in current affairs you have to discuss, or any other subject, you can discuss that right now. I get Swami had a question, right? Swami, is he or she there? Yes, I think you were asking about the books to read, right? So we, you have just cleared your 10th. We suggest that if possible, go through your NCERTs first, starting from 6th until class 12. Okay, try and deal with all the NCERTs pertaining to economics. Once you are done with that, there are other standard books like Ramesh Singh or Sriram IAS notes. Okay, these are the two standard books which are very reputed also. Okay, you can consider these two. And I rather prefer Ramesh Singh. Guys, I've just written the name here. Okay, or it can be either this or Ramesh Singh. Either of the two, you can find that online. Sriram IAS notes are not that updated. Ramesh Singh are very updated. They are updated every year. So try to find the latest version of Ramesh Singh and you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to deal with that. Okay. Yes, I guess Manas, वो रशिया में मेडिसिन बनाया था, उसके बाद इंडिया ने भी बोला था कि यार वैक्सीन निकलेगा तो मुझे भी दे. ऐसे करके रशिया और इंडिया के बीच में we had tried to bring a tie-up. Correct, through that. So, but then that's not the topic on which we can hold an entire Q&A. Anything else from current perspective or something from in any other subject if you want, that will also do. From economics also, if you have any doubts. abuses against women. Can you be like categorically which exactly is there been a very recent such kind of gruesome incident? Can you draw my attention there? Any particular issue you have noticed or something, or in general, what? Guys, come on. You asked me to switch to Q&A. Any question you have? Hello, everyone. There's silence in the chat box. I guess this has happened for the first time. Okay, fine. Okay, sir, I want. I didn't get it. Why will they be seasonal, Harshit? I didn't get it. They'll rather, acha, you are saying what marriage or festive season that way you're saying. First of all, it's not even a job. It's not even a job. They'll be considered as what? Vulnerable employment. It's rather in an unemployed sector. So they won't be even considered in the seasonal wala. They'll be considered as unemployed. They do earn, see now, but still they'll be considered in more. I guess they'll be considered more as a part of vulnerable employment rather than seasonal. Okay. Sanmi, let me tell you this. Acha, Harshit, I guess you still have it. Harshit, try to understand. हम लोग seasonal employment तभी बोलेंगे जब भी when we try to understand and try to consider the scenario that at least there is a fixed income there, not fixed, but at least there is a certainty of income there. Now we do not know in this case, koi time pe koi, basically it's not even something which is an income, that's not even a job. We consider it for begging. Okay, although it's an appalling thing, but we do not consider begging as a business and a profession from which no, begging is not a job. Begging you can't consider. I think you have that perspective of traffic signal in mind कि traffic signal में ऐसा हुआ था business वगैरह बनाया था कौन सा था वो signal ही था ना कौन सा movie था कुणाल खेमू वाला और I guess but then that's not we can't consider that as a job. At least agriculture can be considered to be a part of employment or type of employment. Yes, very true. Begging cannot be considered as a job. Okay. NCRTs depends upon the time you have. If in case you are going to appear the exam maybe next year, like in 2022, if you are going to appear, don't go on making notes. Rather, just read NCRTs, mark it rather than making the notes. If you have a lot of time, maybe if you have just graduated, I mean, if you have just given your 12th or maybe if you have just given your 10th right now, okay, then you have enough time to make notes and everything. Okay, so then you can make the leisure of making notes. Rest for all of those who maybe appear from next to next year or something, maybe 2 years from now, no need to make notes. Quickly read the NCRTs and get back to the basic books. Okay, you must be, if you are going to appear the exam in 2022, you must have this intention in mind by 2021. Yeah, Harshit, just 1 second. But you must have this in your mind that by 2021, mid of 2021, you should be at least done with reading NCRTs once entirely. So in that case, if you go on making notes of NCRTs, that won't be enough. Okay. There was someone who had asked me a question. Sanmi saying, why did RBI not intervene when rupee appreciated this week? Sanmi, we are actually going to discuss about one particular topic. Let me show you here. Topic here, topic iske bare yeah. Manage exchange rate. India has this kind of managed exchange rate in which we allow the currency to float in one particular band. अब RBI ने बोला नहीं है कि कितने बीच में बैंड होगा. It can be somewhere from 50 rupees to 90 rupees. RBI ने मन में ऐसा रखा रहेगा कि 50 से 90 का मेरा बैंड है. अगर 50 से भी ज्यादा इंडियन रूपी गया आगे, ठीक है, then RBI will intervene. और अगर 90 से भी आगे गया, then RBI will intervene. But there is no official band revealed by the RBI. RBI ने ऐसा बोला है कि हाँ, we'll do like something like this. But RBI has not officially revealed a band कि यही band रहेगा जिसके बीच में हम लोग will try and maintain this. Okay, so there is no exactly a dedicated band. Okay, but then just like in the case of inflation, we have a band in inflation, right? It remains from 2% to 6%. ऐसा कोई exactly revealed band RBI का नहीं है for this case. So it must be so that RBI may be trying to understand the market and then may intervene the market if the currency appreciates or depreciates a lot. Okay, so more about this we'll discuss in the next week lecture. Sanmi, we'll discuss more about that. Okay, so then there was another doubt. Just 1 second. India risks stagnation if GDP doesn't grow over 8% annually. Basically, I guess Rupesh, it's something which is India risks stagnation. मतलब क्या? Stagnation of GDP. This is what they're saying. Right now, what I read was that India का GDP 8% तो दूर की बात है. India का GDP right now is not even above zero. It's negative. और negative भी single digit नहीं है, double digit negative है. We are running somewhere in -20% contraction, -16% contraction. In fact, you must have read ये निर्मला सीतारमण का 2-3 दिन पहले स्टेटमेंट आया था. ये सब पढ़ना जरूरी है. By the way, in contemporary news, जो भी हम लोग न्यूज देख रहे हैं, 24 hours it's SSR. I do sympathize with his case. I'm really sympathetic, and I want this case to come to a proper closure with all the culprits being culprits being caught and being punished. But try to understand, they are hiding these news channels. They are basically hiding away the main actual news and bringing you here. Okay, they are not showing you the actual news and bringing you here. So you as a UPSC aspirant should be alert about all the other news also apart from SSR ka news which is going on right now in the news media. दूसरा news क्या था? It was about the statement given by Nirmala Sitharaman, who she is the finance minister. So उन्होंने बीच में ऐसा बोला था that this year GDP is going to meet a contraction. There is going to be a contraction. और contraction कितना? Contraction, they are expecting contraction of what? They are expecting contraction of double-digit contraction. मतलब it is not going to be GDP growth 8% तो दूर की बात है. It's going to be minus something or negative or something. By the way, can anyone tell me, if any of you have come across this, can anyone tell me exactly what reason she told कि ऐसा ये साल क्यों हो रहा है? Yes, Nakul, true that. That's also happening. Can anyone tell exactly क्या reason दिया निर्मला सीतारमन ने? Yes, Manas, tell it to everyone. Tell it to everyone. Don't just tell it to me. Tell it to everyone. What was the reason given by Nirmala Sitharaman कि ये साल ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है? God is doing. Basically, it's not God is doing. She said act of God. She said act of God. कि ये act of God की वजह से ये साल इतना ज़्यादा contraction हुआ है GDP में. ठीक है. Now few are saying this thing कि GDP का contraction सिर्फ ये इसके वजह से नहीं हुआ कि act of God है. ठीक है. ये COVID आया उसके पहले से GDP का contraction मिल रहा है. After demonetization, the GDP has been contracting. ठीक है. So even COVID के पहले. But then this year it's exactly because of act of God कि ये negative gaya, it's gone even below 0%. So that's something which is very worrisome. And what was the question? Yes, India risks stagnation if GDP does not grow over 8% annually. Yes, right, very true. See Rupesh, 8% तो दूर की बात, we are even अगर stagnant हो भी गए तो भी बहुत बड़ी बात. Stagnant हो भी गए तो भी बहुत बड़ी बात. ठीक है. If we are, and why I guess he's saying this because India has a band of somewhere near 10-15 years of demographic dividend. जिसमें इंडिया अगर 8% 9% जितना ग्रो कर पाए तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. अगर 10-15 साल में जब इंडिया का डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड अच्छा है उस चीज के लिए तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. इंडिया विल रीप द बेनिफिट ऑफ डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड, विल बी एबल टू ग्रो एट 8% एंड विल बिकम अ डेवलप्ड कंट्री. बट अगर 10-15-20 साल में जब तक अपना डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड है, ठीक है, जब तक वो बूढ़े नहीं हो जाते, इफ दे बिकम डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड, वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन बिकम ओल्ड, ठीक है, दे विल बिकम लायबिलिटी फॉर अस. सो अंटिल दैट टाइम, जब तक वो लोग लायबिलिटी नहीं बन जाते तब तक इंडिया के पास चांस है 8% ग्रो करके एक डेवलप कंट्री बन जाए. सपोज तब तक इंडिया 8% पे ग्रो नहीं कर पाया, एक डेवलप कंट्री नहीं बन पाया, इंडिया द डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड विल बी गॉन. इंडिया विल ऑलवेज, इंडिया रिस्क द चांस ऑफ ऑलवेज स्ट्रगलिंग इन द डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज वाला बैंड. इंडिया may never be able to reach that developed country wala situation. So yes, it's worrisome. I guess that's what this headline may mean. I've not read the exact context, but this may be the broad meaning of it, as what I can interpret, Rupesh. Okay, so yeah, one more question there was. Okay, I have done reading of Constitution book of NCERT 11th standard. That's great. That's great. That will help you. Just fast and Meg, for you, you can go on making notes of NCERTs. You can afford spending that much time. Others cannot. That's the reason why I said you may choose not to. Sunny, appreciating currency. If the currency appreciates a lot, then it may support the importers. Okay. Yes, very true. Then it may support the importers. But India has allowed the currency to float, and it has allowed the country to remain in that band. अगर सपोज बहुत ज्यादा अप्रिशिएट होगा तो एक्सपोर्टर्स के लिए बुरा है, तो दैट्स द रीजन व्हाई द आरबीआई देन इंटरवीन्स. ठीक है, अगर बहुत ज्यादा डेप्रिशिएट हो गया तो दैट विल बी बैड फॉर द इंपोर्टर्स. दैट at that point of time RBI intervenes, but until that time RBI allows the currency to float. Okay. Central bank is not giving, I mean the RBI is not giving SGST funds. No, RBI is not giving funds to the states. That's also a fact. That's also a matter of fact. RBI, I mean not RBI, sorry, forgive me. The central government had committed के हम लोग दें, अच्छा, yeah, हाँ, central government committed के हम लोग will compensate. Basically, it's GST compensation fund, which is not being paid to the states. You have to also note about this. GST compensation fund के बारे में सेंटर ने भी बोला है, निर्मला सीतारमण ने बोला है. So SSR news is not that important जितना GST के बारे में news. ठीक है, as what Nakul has written, just look at their news headlines and try to read more about this. Basically, तभी GST बना था तभी बहुत सारे स्टेट्स के टैक्सेस भी सेंटर के पास चले गए थे. तभी सेंटर ने स्टेट्स को बोला था कि यार तू चिंता मत कर, तेरे जितने भी टैक्सेस का पैसा जा रहा है वो मैं अलग से तुझे अलग से पैसा दूंगा. ठीक है, ऐसा सेंटर ने कमिट किया था. बट सेंटर ने ये साल पैसे दिए ही नहीं. ओवर द इयर्स भी सेंटर पैसे कम दे रहा था, बट ये साल पैसे दिए ही नहीं. और सेंटर ने बोला अपना अपना देखो. ठीक है, स्टेट्स के ऊपर रख दिया. ठीक है, नाउ स्टेट्स डू नॉट हैव एनी मनी. नाउ स्टेट्स आर डिमांडिंग दिस थिंग कि सेंटर हमारे, तुम एक काम करो, तुम लोन परचेस करो, सम इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन टू टेक द लोन. सेंटर इज सेइंग टू द स्टेट्स that why should we go for the loan? Why can't you as a state go for the loan? So basically, this is a tussle which is going on. You have to read this. You are not supposed to read about SSR. Okay, you have to read about this. You have to read about Nirmala Sitharaman's statement. Okay, read everything else. Even China, by the way, China has started making in that Galwan Valley. China has not read it. China has started making their permanent structures there. You have to read about that. Okay, Manas, I don't know about that particular story. But anyways, let's wait for that speculation to come true. Okay, and yeah, let's stop the lecture here. We'll continue the same discussion next time. I hope you revise and come. Okay, by next time, please revise and come. Okay, anyways, we'll revise from our side, but then you also revise and come. Cool. Okay, we'll stop the lecture here, and take care of yourself. Stay at home, and bye-bye. See you. No, not right now. You should not read Ramesh Singh right now. You rather read NCERTs first, if possible. If you're not comfortable with NCERTs, then for reference you can read Ramesh Singh, but don't make Ramesh Singh as your base book, as your text.